stress, this unhealthiness is due to miscommunication, is due to simply not being on the same page. Sometimes simply talking about things could have easily fixed the problem. And a lot of people don't properly communicate with their partners and attempt to get to the root of the matter. All right? A lot of people are expecting their partner to figure it out, to know this is what you should be doing. Why should I even have to tell you? But you do have to tell them.
Remember, last season,
you do have to express yourself fully so that they're clear on what it is that you need, so that they're clear on what the issue is, because some people don't even realize that you are feeling depleted while they're feeling fine. They could be like, man, I thought everything was good. I'm fine. I'm okay. You seemed okay. You said you're all right. But the whole time, you're feeling destroyed by this relationship. You've got to communicate those things. But again, if it cannot be corrected, after you see that it is taking and depleting you, then yes, that is a sign it is time to let go.
$5 duo at Burger King. Double up flavors when hunger dings. Whopper Jr. and Royal Crispy Wraps for a lunch, dinner, or late night snack. Having your way.
We're gonna need all the help we can get.
Let's get to work.
It's all dark and horny at 12 o'clock.
Number two sign, it's time to let go. When the issues that have been addressed are not being corrected. So again, here's the key. You have to address the issue first. I would never condone or encourage anyone to simply walk away from a relationship when they've done no addressing of the issues. We gotta be able to sit down and talk. We gotta be able to get everything out on the table. And you know, I stress the word everything, because many times we address a little thing here, a little thing there, but we're not getting it all out. Maybe it's the fear of they won't be receptive to it. Maybe it's, well, in the past, this conversation hasn't gone well. And I completely understand that, but you cannot allow that to be a scapegoat as to why you're not going to now talk about these things. So if you're not going to talk about it, how can you continue to have a relationship with them? If we can't talk to each other, we shouldn't be together. Plain and simple. So you've got to be able to get it out. Now, if verbal communication has not worked, and that's very common, that's very typical, then I suggest doing it via a letter. It can be very hard to have healthy, productive conversations verbally, because people can get defensive, people deflect. Sometimes you don't realize your tone and the energy that you're bringing to that conversation, so they're feeling attacked, and they will get into defense mode. Therefore, the conversation goes nowhere. You guys see no progress. By putting it in a letter, where you now can make sure your tone is appropriate, where you can make sure you get everything off your chest, and now they will have an opportunity to truly process what's being said, not listen or read to rebuttal, but read to understand first, and then they can respond. This increases the chances of productive communication. This increases the chances of you two being able to get on the same page and fully addressing things. And it also increases the chances of you clearly seeing if this person is willing to work with you. So consider doing it via a letter. But the bottom line is, once it has been addressed, if the behaviors are not being corrected, it's time to go. Or even worse, they're not even trying to make it work. Like, it's one thing if you have a conversation and someone says, okay, I hear you out, I'm gonna try. And then over time you're noticing nothing's getting better, nothing's improving, and we have to come to the unfortunate conclusion that we gotta let this go. But for some of you, you're bringing it to their attention, you're clearly communicating, and all they're doing is this.
We have a surprise for any
all they're doing is making excuses. They're not even willing to work on the issue. If they're not willing, then what kind of relationship can we have?
What a way to open the
It's
match.
dead at that point.
Big splash
It's
land,
going
the first
nowhere.
cash out.
So at that point, if we attempt to continue to stay in this relationship, we are enabling their bad behavior. We are saying to them that your unwillingness is acceptable, but it's not. You're not happy. It's only gonna make things worse, and you're never gonna see anything change because they see no consequence to their actions or their lack of actions.
I'm sure.
So once you recognize that they're not even willing to work with you, that is indeed a sign it is time to let go. Number 3, when you come to the realization that you're not in love with them. Now listen, that might be a tough one for some of y'all to hear. But here's the reality. And notice I said when you come to this realization, not when you think you've fallen out of love. Because a lot of times people say, well, I fell out of love, things changed. No, the love was never really good. And again, I know that might be hard for you to accept because we confuse love with so many different things. We think that we were truly in love, but we were attached. We had an unhealthy attachment to this individual. And sometimes we're so caught up in the hype, in the fantasy of who we think they are, who we want to believe they are, that we ignore the reality of who they truly are. And when the smoke finally clears, and we finally accept that reality, we realize we're not feeling it like that. We realize we're not in love with them. And the reality is you were never truly in love with them. You were holding on to the image you had in your head, not the reality they presented to you.
The ultra rares suffered a wipeout.
But once you come to that realization, for whatever reason,
We're at the end of this game show,
then it's time
what
to
a
go.
spectacle.
And the reason why is because once you have come to realize that you are not in love with this person, your ability to pour into them the way that they need is pretty much gone.
On the scene.
And then their ability to do the same for you
out.
is pretty much out the window. And so now, what kind of relationship are we going to have if we don't feel like there is love between us? We're not going to be able to truly make this work. We can attempt to be robotic and say, okay, we're just going to stick together and just go through the motions. But what kind of relationship is that? It is very unhealthy, unfulfilling, and it has huge ramifications. Now, granted, I know for some of you might be thinking, well, we got kids, and I get it. Kids makes things much more difficult, but I tell you right now, the idea that we stay together for the kids is misguided because what hurts the kids more than anything is an unhealthy household. So many people who are adults right now were once children growing up in toxic households. Yes, we would love to see more two-parent households, but the goal is two-parent healthy households. If it's going to be toxic, if it's going to be unhappy, if it's going to give it a negative example of relationships and love, then it's going to do more damage to the children.
Respawn alert.
Now again, this is a very sensitive topic, and I know it won't be easy for everyone to understand and grasp this, but I'm telling you right now, as someone who has sat down with tons of people, because remember, I am an actual coach. I sit down, I've counseled tons of people, I've counseled tons of children or younger kids. And I'm telling you what I have seen firsthand, and I'm willing to bet any money. If you sat down and spoke to other therapists, counselors, the more damaging impact is the unhealthy, negative household. Less than the actual separation. And more so than anything, what's really causing damage outside of the unhealthy household dynamic from the separation itself is the confusion of it.
Exceptional.
The kids are like, yo, 1 minute y'all told us you loved each other, and now you're saying you're getting a divorce. Now, I tried to leave divorce out of this, but it came out, so let's talk about it real quick. I understand that when I say it's time to let go and we're talking about divorce, these things can get a little more difficult. And I have a much more specific answer for those who are going to be married. But whether it's divorce, whether it's in a long-term committed relationship, you're living together with the kids, whatever it is, it's the confusion of your separation that does the most damage because you've been unfortunately, lying to them all these years. You've been making them think everything was okay. And now they think one day I just woke up and it went downhill. When the kids are allowed to hear or understand the truth of the matter, that this was a deteriorating situation, that maybe you guys got together too soon, that maybe you guys weren't truly best for each other, whatever it is, it may be a hard pill to swallow for them, but now they can process things in a way that allows them to still have healthy relationships going forward, and for them to not internalize the issue. Because if I'm confused as a child while you two are separating, then I may start to think, is it me? Because you're not giving me the reality of this. So now I start looking for answers. I start internalizing the situation, and now the damage starts to compound and get worse for this individual, for this child. But ultimately, listen, the goal is healthy household. And so if it's not going to be a healthy household, we can't talk to each other, we're not correcting the issue, then there's no point in continuing. So when we come to the realization that we are not in love with each other, or one has come to the realization that they are not in love and they were never really in love, there's really nothing we can do. It's unfortunate, it's a sad situation, but it's what happens in so many cases. You gotta accept. Unless you really can tell me you think you can be all they need you to be despite realizing you're not in love with them, then there's no reason to continue. But again, even if you lie to yourself, and I don't say that disrespectfully, honestly, because if you try to convince yourself that you could do it, you are lying to yourself. You might keep it up for a little while, but at some point, it's gonna fall off. Because when you're not in love, when there's no connection there, your ability to pour into them is just not gonna be sustainable. Number 4, and this is the big one to me, all right? And this is even more specific with those who are married. It's time to go when God tells you. Now listen, if you're not a believer, then of course this isn't gonna apply to you. But for those of you who are, we have to understand that God knows better than us. We have to lean on His understanding. And a lot of times it's hard for us to evaluate letting go of a situation because our emotions are involved. Our time and energy has been given. We may have pressure from family and friends. We may have pressure from feeling like we're not getting any younger. There's so many things that can cause us to be in denial of the fact that we need to let go and walk away from this relationship. But the one thing, the one person, the one entity, however you want to describe it, that will see past all that and can guide you correctly is God. Your friends and family cannot give you proper guidance all the time. Your pastor, me, even though I'm giving you this information, I'm not God. I don't trump His guidance. I'm just giving you something to consider, but I still want you to go to God in prayer and ask Him, is it time to leave? The reality is that many of you have already been told it is, but you struggle. And now you need to talk to God more about how to get to a place that you can embrace the strength you do have within you to do what's best. For many of you, that's going to start with healing. Not just healing from that specific relationship, but from past relationships. Not just romantic ones, your father, your mothers, your cousins, your siblings, whoever. Anyone who's hurt you. Because all of that trauma, all of that hurt and disappointment contributes to your struggle to walk away from something that isn't best from you. To be able to now do what needs to be done. But again, you've got to talk to God. You got to get in tune with your spirit. And when He says it's time to go, it's time to go. Now, when we're talking about divorce, I know people say God hates divorce. He does. But do you think He approves of miserable relationships? Do you think He approves of toxic marriages? He does not. So if we're gonna not correct the issue, then do you think He simply wants you to stay there? Now listen, again, don't just take that as, oh, that must mean God wants me to leave and get a divorce. No, you have to talk to God. You have to allow Him to guide you, but don't assume you know what God wants you to do. There are some situations where, yes, He may not tell you to simply get a divorce, but the actions or the steps that He will give you may lead to you being released from that marriage.
Miles y miles están cambiando Spectrum Internet. Veamos por qué.
Mira, Clarissa, con Spectrum Internet, igual.
It may be your partner who pulls the trigger and you go with that because that will be your freedom. That will be your pass to get out. Whatever it is, you gotta let God tell you how to handle it. So many times we go to other individuals who, yes, may have good intention, but they lack wisdom. They lack an understanding of what's going on. And the unfortunate reality is that some of you have simply gotten with the wrong person. And yes, married the wrong person for the wrong reasons. And there's nothing you can do to make it work in your specific situation. But that's why you've got to accept what God wants you to do. But let me tell you this, even if you are married and contemplating divorce, all right? And even if you feel God wants you to walk away from this, He don't want you walking away acting a fool. What I mean by that is, I see so many people think, well, I'm on my way out anyway, so F it, I'm gonna do whatever I want. Some people start dating and you're still technically married. Some people still ain't upholding their duties as a partner. No. That isn't how this works. You still need to put your best foot forward. There is still a proper way to go about this. You still need to make sure you are going about things in the best way, in the way that God would want you to. You can't just say God wants you to do this, but then do actions or take actions that are contradicting or contradictory to what God would tell someone to do in regards to how we're behaving specifically.
The rules hardly need explanation in quick cash,
talk
but
to
here
God,
it goes.
put your best foot forward. All right? Some of your situations
remember, folks,
can
historically,
be fixed.
it's been all
Some
about
of you,
that fast start.
Either way, lean on Him.
Is getting
Consider the things
siphoned by
that
the
I
top
mentioned.
shelves.
All right, and that's how you know it's time to go. Now again, I know this is gonna be a tough video for some
Our
of you
teams
guys
have
who
made
watch
their
this.
presence known, as we've got
And
our
some of you may
very first
disagree with what's
elimination
been
of the
said.
match.
I hope
Leave
we
your
get to see
feedback
more of
below.
that.
Let me know what you're thinking. All right, but either way, I truly believe these are the things you need to be mindful of when you're asking yourself how to know if it's time to let go. And I pray that you are able to do what's best for you. And for those of you who it can be fixed, I pray that you guys are able to figure it out and get things together and get that communication going and get on the same page. For those of you who simply are not where you belong, I hope and pray that you're able to walk away so that you can receive what is for you and start to live the life that you were created to live. I hope this video was helpful to you. Again, leave your comments below. Like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel.
Shells
And
are
I
looking
hope
to
see
make a
you in the
name for
next video.
themselves. First cash out started.
That's Steven Speaks. We'll get into this next video. See what he got to talk about. This is Tony Gaskin. How you know if your relationship is over?
Hey, Tony Gaskins here. The question is, how do you know your relationship is over? Now, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, how many chances have we given this relationship? If you are on chance number 3 or chance number 4, that is the first sign that your relationship is most likely over. Now, and the reason why is because as human beings, we know how to learn and how to adapt. So if I show you how to shoot a video on this phone and how to upload it to YouTube, it doesn't take me showing you that If you want to talk to me, don't yell at me. All you need to hear is that if you do that again, I can give you the benefit of the doubt and say it was the spur of my own mistake. If you do that a third time, now I can say you don't respect me. you don't respect my wishes, you don't respect my needs, and you are blatantly disrespecting me because I've already told you do not yell at me in communication. So when you are on chance number 3, chance number 4, that is a clear sign that somebody or both of you are
First cash out goes to the tough shells. Let's see whether they can keep that momentum going.
Factor number 2 to think about is how long has it been? So if it's only been 1 year and it's a struggle and you have some ups and downs and you aren't 100% sure, there's some power struggle going on, meaning that you want your partner to serve you, your partner wants you to serve them.
The last shock and awe needs to be shock-proof to avoid a team fight.
Under a year.
An astonishing move as the shock and awe have started to open vault 2.
Still within 2 years. That's
meteors behave when they hit
is over. Now understand this, with everything that I say on every video you watch, there are exceptions to the rule. Guess what? People have driven 90 miles an hour on a road.
Fried chicken and wontons and teriyaki glaze and an egg roll. Some people think this
Went off the road, hit a tree, and lived. That is an exception to the rules. So this is what I want you to understand. Think about your home.
The tough shells have started to cash out.
The one girl you know, the one guy you know, and you're hanging on and you're hanging on this relationship. Well, I know somebody that they broke up and they were struggling for 10 years, and then at year 11 they got married. Congratulations. Give them a cookie. You want to give hard Starbucks, here you go. But that is an exception.
The Bulls are facing some hardship.
Do
Just
not
one
kill
courageous
yourself
contestant left.
trying to copy an exception to the rule. So understand, if it has been years, how long does it take a baby to learn how to talk? Some of your babies start at 9 months. But definitely, a lot of times between 12 and 24 months. On average, it's 12 months. Around that 12th month, the baby's starting to say the first few words. How long does it take a baby to learn how to walk? I want you to think about these things to understand that you're dealing with an adult. It doesn't take an adult 5 years to learn how to love you. It doesn't take an adult 5 years to learn that you're not supposed to cheat in a relationship. It doesn't take 5 years to learn that you're not supposed to yell at someone, curse at someone, call them out of their name, talk down to people, manipulate people, deceive people, use people, drag someone's heart through the mud. It does not take 5 years to learn that. So understand that. Now, the third factor, what you want to think about is effort. So how much effort is being put into the love? And what I mean by this is your partner, or you, if you're the one that you're on the outs, are you really trying? Do you still have sparks of greatness? Meaning, doing the things that you did in that first 6 to 12 months to win this person's heart.
That's a wrap for now.
Are you still using terms of endearment? Are you still dating, going on dates? Are you still trying to talk and communicate and get to know one another and listen to one another without always arguing? What is the effort? Where is the effort? How much effort is being put into the relationship? So what happens is there's a lot of situations where somebody gets complacent. And this doesn't always mean that it's over. It does mean that you need to check under the hood and that you need to have a conversation to remind each other that a relationship is a job that you cannot retire from. You have to show up every day and do the work. So what happens is sometimes we get complacent. And what I mean by this is, I'll say myself, for example. I've been married 12 years. So when I was trying to get my wife, I would do spontaneous things like go over to her apartment and I'm there, and we're hanging out, and then she leaves to go pick something up, like go grab some food. When she comes back, I would have 3x5 cards laid out from the door all the way up, to the room, and each card says something else sweet, or something that I like about her or love about her or think about her, and it leads her to a rose. Or I would be out and I would just come home with a rose and her favorite candy or her favorite drink. And that's what I mean, the effort. So today, 12 years in marriage, what that looks like is I'm sitting on my phone, I get a notification from this app and they just released something new, and it may be as simple as a t-shirt like this. My wife, she loves t-shirts, she wears t-shirts to drop off the kids in the morning. So I bought her a couple t-shirts. But it was nice, nicer t-shirt, designer t-shirt. This is a Walmart t-shirt. This is not that nice. It was a nice t-shirt. I bought her a black one and a white one. She wore them in like the first 2 weeks. She had worn them like 2 times each, and she was like, "Oh, I love these t-shirts." So what did I do? I went back on and I bought her 2 more t-shirts, and now this same brand, they had a sweater. I got her the sweater. I use that as an example, just so you can paint a picture to say, where is the effort? And it's not just about money. It's not about money. It's also about physical touch. Are you still planning each other's hair, massaging each other's back, holding hands? Do you still have long conversations? When I met my wife, we would talk 4 hours at a time. Now, still today, if I'm out of town and we get on the phone, we can talk 2 hours minimum. I mean, it flies by. But we still can talk 4 hours. Last night, my wife was really tired and she was talking and she was like, "I could talk to you all night. I need to go to bed." And that's what I mean. If it has really trailed off, it's died off, and you just feel like, man, nothing is the same. Like there's no effort. Like we're not dating. We're not, really making love. When I say making love, I'm not just talking sexual, but I mean building, communicating, getting to know each other still. So think about these things and go through the list and really evaluate. Now, the fourth factor, what I would say is if you are on again and off again. And so what I mean is if you have to keep taking breaks. So if every 3 months to 6 months, one of you need a break, even if that's a 2-week break, a 1-week break, a 2-month break. I've literally coached people who said, look, I have been on and off for 8 years, 10 years. 5 years is a common number. Between 5 and 8 years, very common numbers. And I'm like, that's not a relationship. Because you should not want extended breaks out of frustration. Tonight, I'm going to a basketball game by myself. It's the middle of the week. I have clients playing in the game. So I'm going to this NBA game. My wife can't go because my son has practice. And so I'm going by myself. I got to drive to the arena. It's going to be about 2 hours. That's me time. I get to think. That is a break from the world. You need me time, but don't confuse that me time with a break from your partner for 2 weeks and, or more out of frustration and anger because y'all keep bumping heads arguing. That's totally different. So if that keeps happening, that is a huge sign. That on again, off again. The fifth factor is abuse. If there's any form of abuse that is present in your relationship and you have addressed this abuse, and this abuse happened again, and it continues to happen, even if the abuse is spaced out over time, like your partner goes a year without this abuse, but then gets back on it, your relationship is over. Because your partner does not respect you, and your partner is not in love with you. And there's a difference between love and in love, and I have a video on here. You may have to go to my videos and search it, or just scroll through them and watch that video on the difference between love and in love. So any form of abuse, and this can be social abuse, which is making fun of you in front of your friends and family, online, posting stuff that is one-sided, like a meme or a quote, and then everybody in the comments agreeing with your partner and is really beating you up because it's his or her point that they're trying to make. It can be social abuse. It can be financial abuse, meaning either controlling your money, borrowing your money, using your money, taking your money, living off of you, or telling you what you can and can't do with your money, putting you on some type of unrealistic money situation, budget or loans or whatever it may be. It can be emotional abuse, which can come from cheating or just emotional mind games, mind tricks, manipulation, deception, coercion, all of those things. And it can be verbal abuse, so cursing at you, saying nasty, mean things to you. You're not this, you're not that, you're less than this, you're less than that. You ought to do this, you ought to do that. And, verbally attacking you, and to where it affects your self-esteem and you feel bad about yourself. If it's about your weight, if it's about your looks, if it's about your money, your job, your income, whatever it is, verbal abuse is off the table. It cannot be a part of a relationship. And then also physical abuse, which it happens. It's becoming. It's still happening a lot. It's not showing up as much just because of the camera phones and the pictures and people getting caught on camera. It's not that prevalent as it once was before all the social media and camera, but it is still happening. At one point, it was every 9 seconds a woman is being abused, but I believe that's across the whole, country. So, but physical abuse in any form. Punching you in the thigh, punching you in the arm, pinching you, pushing you, choking you, slapping you. It doesn't have to be a closed fist, black eye. Any form of physical abuse, pulling your hair, yanking your ear, pinching your thigh, pinching your arm, pinching you under here. Any form of physical abuse where pain is inflicted upon you for the purpose of retaliation or teaching you a lesson or getting your attention or out of anger or frustration from your partner, that is abuse and it's unacceptable. So hey, I believe I went through 5 factors. I don't have this written down. I'm not editor on the videos. I wish I could have had it pop up to the screen and do all of that, but hey, I don't have that kind of time. God bless you. Go back through it. Maybe somebody listening, you could type up the 5 factors in the comments, and y'all can see that. And if I see it, I'll pin it to the top. Thank you so much. God bless you. We'll talk soon.
At least in high jump, as our low gravity event continues.
I love Kajabi because it allows me to run my entire online course business in one place. I've got a 7-figure business utilizing course.
You have to be honest with yourself.
Let me see. Let me cue this other video. This is Jay Shetty Podcast. He's from the Tonight's Conversation.
About why are you still here? Why are you holding on? What's really driving? Driving you. You don't.
The fuck?
To serve in a relationship, do.
Because I like to hear everything they say.
What's going on, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram? Listen, I made a post this morning, and some of the responses shocked me. Basically, what I said was, if you are not ready to serve in a relationship, do not inner one. Relationships is about two people that's ready to serve one another, and that's one of our biggest flaws. It's like too often we get to a place in our lives where we feel like we're too good to do certain things for people in which we want to commit and invest the rest of their life into us. But here we are expecting them to give the most to us when we are only giving them 50, 60, 40, 30% of us. And sometimes I make videos, Instagram, Facebook. Sometimes I make videos and I'll be like, there is no possible way someone would be able to refute what we just talked about. But no, there is a possible way. So I read some of the comments, right? And it was a comment from a young lady and she said, you know what? No, I'm only serving him. I'm only willing to give him the best of me if he's doing what he's supposed to do, right? If he ain't doing what he's supposed to do, then he ain't getting all of me. He ain't getting me treating him right. He ain't getting me doing extra things in the bedroom. He ain't getting this all of me. No, If he ain't acting right, he ain't getting that, Ace. So I get it. I think you should modify what you said, Ace. I feel like that you should only give to people what they give to you. Now check this out. The premise of that statement, when I first looked at it, I was like, all right, yes, I feel you, like. But then I thought about it. Let me tell you what I thought about. Why would you be with someone that you felt like you couldn't give your all to? You felt like that person didn't deserve you going the extra mile in the bed. You felt like that person doesn't deserve you cooking a good meal for. You feel like that person doesn't deserve you being loving and compassionate and supportive. You feel like that person doesn't deserve it because they're not doing the things back to you to warrant that. I get that. But my question is, why are we with people we feel like we can't be our best selves with? That's my point. Why are we staying in relationships in which we feel like we can't give our all to? We can't put on that nice thing when it comes to the sex. We can't really fully trust enough to be super vulnerable with, openly emotionally available with. We can't. We don't feel like going the extra mile. And ain't that how you know the relationship should be done? Hear me out. Ain't that how you know the relationship actually should be done? When you feel like you can't give your best self to it. Ain't that how you know? Ain't that how you should know? Does this relationship, how are you cheating yourself out of that? The best thing in life, I'm telling you, is loving someone with everything you got. That's the best feeling in the world. Why do we cheat ourselves out of that feeling by staying with someone that doesn't deserve it?
If y'all ain't checked out tonight's conversation, check it out, though, because they do be on there talking that shit.
We were made to love fully, not half, not sometimes-y. When we are unable to love our partners fully, we are cheating ourselves out of one of the biggest joys. You know how they taught you back when you were in middle school or probably preschool, elementary, they taught you that giving is better than receiving, right? To give has more joy in it than receiving. Oh, you cheat yourself out of that joy when you are with someone that's not worth giving to. They make you regret doing nice things for them. They show you every day that they don't appreciate who you are and what you mean to this relationship. These are people that we have to avoid. But we don't. We don't. We reason that, you know what, I'ma stay, but since they don't deserve me doing X, Y, and Z, I'ma stay and just adjust how much I give to them. And we not only do a disservice to the relationship, but again, we do a disservice to ourselves. Because now you are in a relationship that is on autopilot, that is on ghost mode, that's a toleration ship. He's not giving to you, you're not giving to him. He's not motivated by your lack of motivation, and you're not motivated by his lack of motivation. He's saying, okay, I'm going to withhold from this relationship because she's withholding from this relationship. And you're like, I'm going to withhold from this relationship because he's withholding from this relationship. And this is how you get into these endless, loveless cycles. And let me be honest with you, that can last the rest of your life if you let it. The very moment you stop trying in the relationship, it's the moment the relationship is damn near over. It is. The moment you stop trying is when the relationship is ending. It is over. So here's my tidbit of advice to everybody that's watching. What I need y'all to do, if you was on Facebook, I need you to do me a favor, hit the share button. Because there's people all over your timeline that need to hear this. You are Instagram. This message will be on YouTube and Facebook. But check this out. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you ever feel like you are with somebody that doesn't deserve the best of you, don't give them any rest of you. You hear me? If you're with someone that doesn't deserve the best of you, then you need to move on. It's not fair to you. It is not. I get it. They deserve to have energy that they're giving you. So let them get that half energy from someone else. Let them get that half love from somebody else, that half effort from somebody else. But you should never stoop your ability to love fully down a notch because you refuse to go to someone else that actually deserves 110% of you. I know it's people watching right now that's in these toxic, lifeless relationships, and you are reasoning that it's okay because at least you ain't invested everything you got no more. At least you ain't giving to somebody that don't deserve it no more. At least you matching his energy now. You feel me? That's what you start reasoning to yourself. But you're cheating yourself. That reasoning leads to you cheating yourself. That is what you are doing here. You ain't equalizing a relationship. You're wasting more of your time. So yes, to recap that piece of advice, if you feel like you can't give a man the best of you, you feel like that man doesn't deserve, the liquor, the fruit roll-up treatment. Ladies, y'all know what the fruit roll-up treatment is? If you feel like that man doesn't deserve the fruit roll-up treatment, hey, some of my nasty people know what the fruit roll-up treatment is. You feel like he don't deserve that. You feel like he doesn't deserve you making him a sandwich and bringing it to him. You feel like then that's a man you probably don't need to be with. And here's the thing, a lot of you guys are in these loveless, empty relationships with people that ain't even your husband yet. You guys been dating 2 or 3 months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 12 months, and already there's a sense of complacency that he has. And then you let that rub off on you. Now you follow suit and you are complacent too. No, never do that.
Don't do it.
Lastly, sometimes in relationships, I will be remiss not to talk about this. Sometimes some people in the course of a lifelong relationship is going to lose motivation here and there. Let's be real about it. But the answer to your problem isn't also losing motivation with them. It is you saying, you know what? I'm going to give this person my all regardless because I believe in him. I know this is just a rough patch. If you've been giving your all for 6-7 months though, and that person ain't snapped out of it, then you need to snap out of that relationship. So I am not one of those people that's gonna say, continue to give 110% no matter what, if that person eventually doesn't snap out of their little stupor. Because they build, people build relationship equity. We've been together 10 years and we have a bad 10 months. I'm not going to blame you. Okay, you got some equity built into this relationship where now I can give you some time to get back on your horse. But just because you fell off your horse doesn't mean I'm going to accidentally fall out of mine. No, I'm going to still be the best husband I can be to you until you get your stuff together. If at any moment I feel like I can't be my best self with you because of how you are treating me, I am going to leave the relationship, no matter how difficult it is. I have to look myself in the mirror every day and like what I see. I can't look myself in the mirror and like what I see if I'm not giving my all to anything, like everything of my life, especially my relationship. So look at me right now. If ever you force me to have to choose between loving you less efficiently, loving you with just pieces of me instead of the whole me, because of your actions, I will choose to leave you. I want to repeat that. If you ever force me to have to contemplate between leaving you or toning down the love I have for you, or stop loving you fully, or matching your half-ass energy, I will always pick leaving you. Do not ever force me to choose. Period. And that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. And that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay. And that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. That's so that. Okay. So I want y'all to do me a favor. If you on Facebook, I need you to share this video, because there are people that need to hear this message. I always say this. Right now, we got 1,800 people watching on Facebook. I need every one of you guys to do me a favor. I need you to like this video. I want you to hit an emoji, a thumbs up, the heart emoji right now. Everybody, that's the favor I ask of you. Hit that right now, okay? Secondly, comment. I want you to comment, yes, anything. These are free ways you can help support your boy and spread these messages. Also, the most important thing, if you really enjoyed what I just talked about, hit the share button. The share button is the biggest way you can support me. On YouTube, make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button. We doing this, now that I got this set up, we doing this often. And if you really, really enjoyed anything you heard, you can go get my merch. I got shirts, I got card games, I got books. You can go to shopacemetaphor.com. Right now, I'm pushing my card games. Tonight, let's talk. I know you guys have seen the ads, so make sure you go support. I love you guys. I will end with this. If ever, this is me answering this question. If ever you feel like you gotta stop your whole self in a relationship, that is time when you know it's about time to leave. It's about time to leave. Because you deserve someone you can love with everything you got. Period. Don't cheat yourself out of that experience. There's too many of you guys right now that's loving off a quarter tank. Really, you loving somebody off a quarter tank. And it's hurting you. The ability to love someone with everything you got, my goodness, there's no better feeling. But you gotta find somebody that deserves that. You gotta find somebody that gives you back the same energy. And if you wake up a year into this relationship and you figure out that person isn't able to do that, you have to be strong enough to leave instead of cheating yourself out of your sunshine and your future. All right, I love you guys, man. Thank you so much for watching this broadcast. Make sure you share the...
I'll get into this next video. We got a lot of information for y'all. You know what I mean? So share me. Let's see what they talking about.
Money and most of all, emotional energy. The more you invest in a relationship, the more it shapes your choices and ultimately your life. When you have so much invested, it can be hard to let go for reasons such as worrying about the impact on, say, your children, if you have any, wondering if you've really put forth enough effort to work things out, or the fear of being alone. But when a relationship deteriorates, there is inevitably always a time when the damage has been done and no amount of salvaging can save it. Knowing when to let go is key when it comes to being able to cut your losses, maintain your mental health and well-being, and really move away from a toxic relationship into a better relationship that you truly deserve. In this video, I'm going to share with you 4 signs that it's time to move on from the relationship that you're currently in. Stay.
Wow. Incredible. Amazing.
My go-to is Lumify eye drops.
Lumify dramatically reduces redness.
In 1 minute.
And look at the
Welcome back. My name is Jessica. This is a channel that offers relationship advice predominantly for men. So if this is the first time here, do me a favor, join my growing community, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications so you get a notification every single time I post. Now, if you also have a lot more questions for me and you'd like a one-on-one session, it is available via my Patreon community. Log on to patreon.com/JessicaOS and you'll be able to find me there. We can have a quick face-to-face chat and hopefully I'll be able to answer more of your questions. So good luck to that. You can also go to the Patreon community just to support the channel if you like the kind of content that I put out. All right, so let's jump right in to today's topic. Really, 4 signs that it's time to leave your relationship. Sign number 1, the goodness is gone. Now, while chemistry is quite important when it comes to the survival of a relationship, I believe that solid relationships are also built on the goodness of the relationship that exists between two people. What am I talking about? It's the kindness and the goodwill towards each other. It's the willingness to forgive and to forget. It's the drive to continue to work at attaining some form of a perfect relationship. You know, it's all those good things that come together to make the relationship what it truly is. It's the willingness to forgive flaws and mistakes. It's the willingness to look past all shortcomings. It's the willingness to tolerate bad habits. It's the support, admiration, dedication you have towards each other. That's the goodness that I'm talking about. Now, if you find yourself in a relationship where the goodness is gone, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to either really pull something out of your hat to salvage the situation, or to pretty much begin to put together an exit strategy to get yourself out of such a toxic situation. So if you do realize that the goodness is gone, it will be a good time for you and your partner to actually have a sit down and figure out why you care less for each other, why things have changed, why you no longer do the things you do, and it seems really forced to get the same things that you used to do when you met to sort of happen this time around. Number 2, you're being disrespected. Now, respect is a huge thing in relationships, you know, and if you ask me, it, in some instances, even trumps trust, you know, because how can you trust someone who disrespects you, someone who does not think that you are worthy of any kind of attention, love, and care? Even the littlest of things actually matter because it tells you how people really feel about you. If you're in a relationship where your partner disrespects you, and sometimes not just in your own company, but when other people are present, other people are around to witness just how badly they disrespect you, you should know that you're pretty much at the end of that rope. Now, disrespect can come in many forms, and you may not always recognize it, but trust me, you can feel it. It's that kick in the gut feeling you get when, well, things that were ordinarily a given are suddenly taken away from you and not made to seem like you deserve them anymore. It's the insults, the lying, the cheating. They're all signs of disrespect. And for me, what they really reveal is more how you are being disregarded, how your feelings do not matter in the grand scheme of things where your relationship is concerned. And for me, what such a sign really reveals is a lack of concern for how you feel and how these behaviors are affecting you. Mentally, emotionally, physically, etc. Now, if you're not sure whether your partner is being disrespectful or is merely unaware of the disrespectful behavior, maybe it's time you draw them in. Let them know how you feel. Let them know that you did not appreciate such demeaning comments, such insults, such, you know, whatever it is that they may be doing on a regular to make you feel less of a person. And observe their behavior over the next couple of days, weeks maybe, to see if there has been some form of change. Once again, if they are not forthcoming, they do not think that your relationship is worth salvaging, then maybe it's time to move on to the next one. Number 3, you're trying too hard. You know, the energy flow between two people in a relationship is usually a give and take, you know, almost 50-50. Both people are putting in the effort to keep the relationship afloat. Now, when you get to a point in your life where you feel like you're the only one who's working twice as hard to maintain the relationship while your partner is just cruising, then maybe it's time to reassess your position in their lives. You know, those things that came naturally to him or her, where you are concerned, have suddenly gone missing. You need to literally beg for their time and attention. And over time, you're becoming resentful of this person that you're dating. Now, a simple thing that I would do in your situation is, if I feel like I'm the one giving too much, doing all the work, I'll take a couple of steps back, just to observe and see if my partner is willing to take a few steps forward to meet me in the middle. If, however, you take a few steps back and he or she does not even realize that you've done so, then it's a clear indication that you're actually wasting your time. Now get this, not only have they not realized that you've taken a step back from trying too hard, but it seems like they just do not care enough. Nobody in any healthy relationship should have to work so hard to keep the relationship going. It takes two to tango. If things are going to work out, then it's because both of you are willing to put in the effort. Listen, if you find yourself in a relationship where you are the one doing all the work all the time to maintain that relationship, it is not a healthy relationship to be in. It's toxic, and for your mental health's sake, I would recommend that you end it. And finally, number 4, it's all about the other person. So healthy relationships tend to have a really fine balance. Now, when you get to a point where you feel as if the relationship is all about one person in that relationship and not necessarily both parties, then you need to really pay attention to what's going on. It seems as if it's always their way or the highway. It seems as if it's only their dreams that are being met, their requests that are being granted, and you're always the one left out in the cold being asked to compromise. Now, this is something that happens in a lot of relationships where there's always one party that suffers, who has to put their dreams on hold to make sure that the other person sort of shines. Now, that in itself is not a bad thing. If you guys have a plan in place to reverse it when the time calls for it. But more often than not, that's never the case. There's always one partner who seems to be leveraging on the relationship to pursue their own dreams, fulfill their wishes all the time, whilst the other person has to sacrifice largely for the relationship to thrive. Selfishness has no place in a relationship. Self-centeredness has no place in a relationship. If you are dating or married to someone who is selfish, there is absolutely no reason why you should continue to court such a person. They do not care about you. Your welfare is not paramount for them. Your mental health doesn't matter. And if you continue to stay in such a relationship, you're going to hate yourself for it in the end. I know that sometimes these relationships are complicated. As I said earlier, kids may be involved. It may be tricky to just walk away. After all, divorce is even really expensive. But you see, nothing should compromise your sanity. Nobody, and especially not the person who claims to love you, nobody should make you feel less important. You're partners in this relationship. You're embarking on this journey together. And that's how it always must be. Everyone's voice needs to be heard. And if you're in a relationship where you're not being attended to, you're not being heard, your thoughts, your feelings, your aspirations and dreams are being pushed to the back burner every single time, and you're not being given the opportunity to flourish in your own right, it's a toxic relationship. And you need to exit it before things become too late. Now, this video is serving as a guideline of all the things that you need to consider before you leave your relationship. Do some introspection. Put your relationship through a litmus test and see if you'll pass with flying colors. Everybody deserves happiness at the end of the day. And if your partner is not willing to meet you halfway, to live up to their end of the bargain, the promise that you guys made to each other, then there's absolutely no reason to spend one more day being unhappy.
Time to go. That's Jessica O. Face on YouTube. Check her out.
I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please smash the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on all notifications. My name is Jessica.
Remember what another person's growth is.
Video.
And a lot of times, like, people just grow apart. You feel me? And that's why I said to the first woman, like, you don't get to play judge with someone else. Because
you don't feel like starting the process over with somebody else. So even though you're not feeling it with him, you're wasting your time.
The best-selling author and host.
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
On Purpose with Jay Shetty.
What are the signs that someone deeply loves you? Because I feel like we live in this world where we're always wondering, do they love me? Do they like me? Do they really like me? Are they really into me? How do you know when you deeply love someone and when someone deeply loves you? How do you even know?
So I'm going to start with an answer that people probably won't expect. To me, the first key is, do you truly love them? Because look at it like this. To me, a lot of people get caught up in infatuation. They have unhealthy attachments. They have different motivations to why they decided this is the person that I want. And that can make them feel like they're in love. But to me, true love flows both ways. It's not a one-sided thing. So when you can say, I'm not into them like that. If we look deep into that situation, I can almost guarantee what we'll find is infatuation, attachment, something else. But when you can say, no, I feel it too. I'm deeply in love with them. I think that's your first key. Because without that, nothing else matters. Because a lot of people are choosing partners based off of, well, they love me so much, so I assume it's safe here, and this is a good choice to make. But the safe choice is usually the wrong choice. And a lot of these people select this individual thinking everything's going to be okay, but because you're not really into them, you can never be what they need. And you have to be honest with yourself about, why are you still here? Why are you holding on? What's really driving you? You don't feel like starting the process over with somebody else. So even though you're not feeling it with him, you're wasting your time.
The best-selling author and host.
Feel me? Like times, like, people just grow apart. You feel me? And that's why I said to the first woman, like, you don't get to play judge. You don't get to determine what another person's growth is. And a lot of times, like, people just grow apart. You feel me? And that's why I said to the first woman, like, you don't get to play judge with someone else, because you'll start to determine, like, oh, you're not growing fast enough for me. Like, you don't know how close that person is to their next blessing, to their next chapter. You don't know how far they are, and you don't know when your fall off coming. You feel me? Like, when you up, it'd be easy to tell somebody else that they need to grow faster and they need to do more. You feel me? Now, here's the thing. I ain't telling y'all to be with nobody who money fucked up and fucking up your money. All right? Again, if you don't have the capacity, go. You feel me? I don't care how locked in y'all are. I don't care what y'all going through. If you don't have the capacity, if it's ruining your ability to show up healthy and whole in the relationship, go. I don't care if it's for money or whatever, bro. Like, it's cool that you out. You don't have to say you outgrew the person. You outgrew y'all's relationship. You don't have to judge that person like that and make yourself seem better than them or higher than them. It's just that this relationship it don't got enough space for who I am anymore. I like that. And that's all right. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, because I'm gonna fuck your growth up too. Yeah. So I'm gonna go.
He say, shit, I'm gonna fuck your broke up too.
Why did I start using classic interview with Crystal Ball and Buck Sexton, Candace Owens, and Charlie Kirk sat down to discuss a conservative event for young African Americans they were soon to host.
Quality, built-in editor, or AI-generated clips for social media. All three features are available inside Riverside, so why the hell are you still using Zoom to record your podcasts? The 4K recording quality is going to make sure that your viewers actually stick around, because nobody wants to watch a pixelated head talking for longer than 30 seconds. You can also cut your post-production time in half with Riverside's text-based editing feature. Simply highlight the transcribed text you don't want and also give the removing silence feature a try, which removes all pauses to make you sound like a podcast pro and not somebody who's waiting for the bus. Finally, the last feature I'm super stoked on is their Magic Clips feature, which uses AI to pick the best moments from your podcast and turns them into ready-to-share moments for social media. So say bye-bye to those late-night editing sessions and wanting to throw your laptop through some drywall. Check out Riverside and get started for free today.
Midterms are starting next week, so with tough school times like this, it is important to set yourself up for success. Genuinely use Grammarly like every single day, and it just has helped me so much with my school assignments. Damn,
my bad, y'all. I'm trying to get this shit in order.
Leave it alone. But the hard part is understanding, how do I know God blocked it? How do I know this is really what He wants me to do? How do I know when He does not want me to be with someone in a relationship? So it can be very confusing. It can be very difficult to decipher. And the reality is that for many of you, for many of us, depending on where you are in your life, you may not have become comfortable with hearing God's voice. You may not understand how to connect with your spirit in a way that allows you to see the things in the way that God sees them, and to understand or to be able to embrace God's understanding of a situation. So now when we're talking about relationships specifically, it's very important. I mean, in life in general, it's important that we learn this approach of leaning on God, so to speak. But in relationships, we can't ignore it, because I've seen so many people will lean on God when it comes to career, lean on God when it comes to their health, lean on God in so many ways. But when it comes to dating and relationships, it's like, nah, God, I got this. I'll figure it out. I'll go to my friends, I'll go to my family, I'll go to my past, I'll go to everybody else to get their opinion, all right, to get their guidance. But I'm not going to God, and I don't understand how to. So I want to make things easier for you today, but more specifically when we're talking about when God does not want you to be with someone. Now, please understand, I'm going to lay out some things to be mindful of that I do believe are very strong signs that we need to consider that this is not what God wants for you. However, they are not the final say-so. I will give you what gives you the final say-so at the end of this video. So, number one is when the person pulls you away from God rather than closer to God. Now, let's make this really simple to understand. If you have a child and they're of age to find their partner, right? And you're allowing them to go on their own and date and do what they gotta do. But you get to see the people that they're engaging with and that they're entertaining, and you know who you like for them or who you feel is truly best for them, because you know your child. At least we hope you know your child very well. You understand what's gonna be necessary for their life to flourish, to really be happy and all these things. And now you see someone that comes along and this person pulls them away from you, pulls your child away from family, pulls your child from having that same relationship that you have built with your child over all these years. Would that really be the person you want for your child? No, not at all. So why would God want us or co-sign us being with someone that pulls us further away from Him? Now, some of y'all might be saying, of course, this is common sense, but stop right there. Because I've seen this play out so many times. I've seen people even try to claim that God's hands are on a relationship when they're dealing with someone who pulls them away from God, who pulls them away from the principles God has tried to instill in them, who pulls them away from their values and their beliefs. Again, now listen, let me make something clear. Nobody's perfect, all right? And sometimes our drifting from God is not the fault of the person that we're dealing with, all right? So we have to understand that there's going to be some variations in how this whole thing is viewed. However, there are cases where this individual is clearly not walking the path God wants you to be walking on, and is clearly pulling you more away from God. Or if not actively pulling you, undermining you, undercutting your efforts to connect with God, not respecting your walk with God. Again, why would God want this person for you? And unfortunately, I've seen individuals where, thinking of some situations I've seen where, let's say they've prayed about it. God showed me a sign. Like, matter of fact, I just had someone recently say they were dealing with a guy who was verbally abusive, very toxic relationship in a lot of different ways. And she said, she figured that this is what God wanted for her, because when she prayed and asked God to remove this person if he's not for her, this man never went away. All right? And this is why I tell people, and I even mentioned this in my book, The Man God Has For You. I'll show it to you a little bit later. But in it, I talk about how, especially specifically with women, that there's a prayer I don't want y'all to keep praying. And that prayer is, Lord, if he's not for me, please remove him. And just as what happened with this young lady is what I explained, where you are now putting it on God to remove this person. Understand that everyone has free will. And we have to ask God what we need to do in that situation, not just simply do it for us, especially when we're talking about other people being in our lives. Now, I'm not saying no one has ever been removed by the grace of God. What I'm saying to you is that if God forbid, like in this situation, this person does not go away, you will now assume, well, this must be what God wants. And she ignored the fact that he was toxic. She ignored the fact that he essentially pulled her away from God. She ignored all the things that went against what God would want for her or any child of his. Why? Because when she prayed, this man still remained in her life. So it's extremely important that you, one, understand and start to evaluate, does this person help me cultivate my relationship with God? Or does this person undermine my relationship with God? If they undermine it, then no. The only exception to that is, and I'll say this will apply to everything I'm about to list in this video. Sometimes it's a matter of it's not time to be with them, all right? So even if you believe that this person is the person that God wants you to be with, let's just say even you've prayed about it and you feel in your spirit, this is it. But this person is still behaving in these toxic ways, undermining your faith. They have not grown yet. That means it's not time yet. And we'll dig into that a little bit more. But the bottom line is you got to pay attention to when they're pulling you away or undermining your relationship versus helping cultivate and push you towards God. Which brings me right to number 2, is they create a toxic environment. So as I mentioned in this previous example, this man was toxic. And again, it's not that even people of God can't have toxic moments, all right? It's not that even good people don't sometimes lose themselves and come out of character. It can happen. But when we're talking about this consistent negative behavior, this consistent toxic behavior, and more specifically, this consistent toxic environment, again, that is not of God. God is not in the midst of this fear, and when I say not in the midst, he is not trying to push you towards creating or not. You know, I'm losing myself here because you know what? The reason why I'm hesitant is because sometimes God will walk us through a storm, all right? Because there's a purpose for us to go through that storm. So I don't want to discount the fact that there are going to be some situations where, yes, we have to quote unquote engage in a toxic environment because there's a greater purpose at hand. But we have to understand that we do that with God guiding us and understanding what is the mission here. What is the assignment that is placed here? We do it, we handle our business, and we move on from there. But I think when it comes to relationships, again, it's not that it would never be possible for that to be the case. It's just that I think too many people still want to use the shield of, well, this is what God wants me to do, when you haven't really even consulted with God. And the fact is that in most scenarios, these toxic environments in regards to relationships are evidence of you dealing with someone you do not need to be with. Plain and simple. And again, even if you argue this is someone that you think is ultimately for you, the toxic environment is evidence of that you or them or both of you are not truly ready yet. So sometimes God will bring people into our lives or allow people into our lives who the meeting, the crossing of paths is for a purpose, but that doesn't mean it is time to enter into a romantic relationship. The problem is that we have a tendency as people to jump ahead of ourselves and to want to grab hold of that person and move things along sooner than they should be moved along. And this can derail the purpose. This can undermine the whole process of what was supposed to occur here and create a lot of other issues. And that's why, and again, I'm gonna mention at the very end of this video specifically what we need to do in all of this. That's why it's so important that we just cannot ignore consulting with God. That is just the key to every step along the way of making sure we're on the right track. But ultimately, in general, in most cases, that toxic environment, it's at the very least a red flag. I mean, there's no way around that. It is something that has to be addressed because, again, it's one thing for it to be a moment, for it to be a short-lived experience. It's another thing when it is a constant thing that is not being properly resolved and addressed in a relationship. That is something that is, that's when God doesn't want us here. All right, so now, keep this thing going. Let's go to number 3. And number 3 is they distract you from your purpose. All right, so let me add to that by saying both distract and pull you away from your purpose. Now, let's start with distract. We have to understand that distracting you from your purpose is a two-way street. And what I mean by that is sometimes it is them actively distracting you, and sometimes it is you losing focus and putting more energy into them rather than what God wants you to do. That is a problem. That is an issue. Regardless of who you're going to be with, regardless of if this is or isn't the right person, you've got to understand that God wants you to make sure that your purpose and the purpose that you receive through Him is priority, all right? Is at the forefront of your life. And at the end of the day, your purpose through God is more important than any other person on the face of this earth, all right? We have to be willing and able to walk away from anyone to uphold the purpose that God puts on us. Plain and simple. That seems harsh, but if you were to read scripture, you would gain a better understanding of that, where, they essentially say that. You've got to be willing to walk away from anything. So when someone has become a distraction, first step is regain proper focus. Put things in proper order. And now when you put things in proper order and you make that purpose your priority again,
it starts
now
with that
we
one
get to
little
see
thing that we try to tell ourselves is not a big deal.
Because the person who is in alignment with you, the person who embraces who you are in God, is going to support, is going to pour into that purpose that you have. They're going to uplift you in that way. They're not going to take issue. All right? Now, something just hit my spirit, so I have to mention it. When I say they won't take issue, this does not mean you get to prioritize your purpose and neglect your partner. Please, do not confuse what I'm saying here. Purpose is priority, but your partner is a priority too if this is the partner that God wants you to be with, all right? And so there is a balance you have to achieve. You have to give to them and your purpose, but it just means, when I say purpose is of the highest priority, yes, you cannot put that on the back burner because your partner feels some kind of way today. And I would argue that if they are the right person and they understand this is your purpose, they will work with you on that, all right? They will not become a problem, a distraction, undermine your path in life. But going back to the point that I was making, you got to make sure that when you get things in proper order, you're going to see if they're the real distraction, because again, they're either going to embrace and align with you, or they're going to start to cause problems because you are no longer making them a higher priority than your purpose, all right? I also feel the need to say, and this one is specifically for the women, pulling you away from your purpose. So here's an example that I feel the need to mention, all right? And again, this won't apply to everybody, but it's just in my spirit to say it. For some of you, for some of the ladies listening, your purpose is in that home, all right? Your purpose is raising those children. Because there may be, and I'm just giving a very specific example, there may be something very special. Everybody's special, but there may be something even more, what's the word? There's just a greater of importance for you to be heavily in that child's life. Okay? And so let's say you're with a man and he's trying to say, well, you need to take your behind to work. You need to go do this, right? Again, I understand in the perception of life as we live it, where some people believe in 2-income households and the need for everybody to work and all this stuff. But if genuinely in your spirit, God is saying, no, you need to be readily available for those kids, for whatever the reason is. But you have a man who's telling you to do something opposite. This is a conflict of purpose too. I mention this because I think when we say purpose, people think of career-like things. They think of going out in the field and doing stuff. They think of, running this business, writing this book, all these different things, which yes, can be part of your purpose, right? But it's almost like the home part gets overlooked and dismissed and even devalued. And again, it doesn't mean it's going to be for every woman, but for some women, that might be the case. That might be the case. Hell, to be fair, for some men, that might be the case. I don't know, all right? I'm going to throw that out there as a possibility. The point is, you've got to make sure you're with a partner who respects, understands, embraces, encourages, and pours into what that purpose is. And so if I'm your man and your purpose is to be at the home with the kids, then my job is to make sure you have what you need to foster a positive environment, to be well rested when you need it, to have all the tools at your disposal for a successful mission to be completed. All right? Same thing on the flip side. If your man's purpose is whatever, if he's out there doing his job and things, then for you as his woman, you got to make sure you're pouring into him, you're setting him up for success, you're making life easier for him to carry out what his assignment is. When we can't have that, when we have a partner who goes against that, then this is when we're dealing with someone that God does not want us to be with. But of course, there's a step you have to take to verify that. But let's keep this going. So next on the list is when they refuse to grow in God with you. All right? Now, let me get right to the point in saying this real quick. Growing in God with you does not mean based on how you want to dictate that growth. All right? I've observed a lot of relationships where, and I have to say, where let's say the woman is quote unquote growing faster than the man. And she wants to see more going to church, reading of scripture, all these things, right? But he's not there yet. He's still getting comfortable with prayer and all these things. So he is growing, but he's not growing at her pace. He's not growing in the way that maybe she wants him to grow. But it's not about how we want them to grow or what we have deemed to be necessary. It's what God wants it to be. God understands the process that needs to be undertaken by each individual, all right? And what we have to do as someone's partner is make sure we're being mindful of the role that we play in this process. Not trying to dictate it, just seeing how we fit into this and what we need to be doing, all right? To encourage and uplift. But understand that, yes, we're gonna sometimes grow at different rates. But when I say that they refuse to grow in God with you, I'm talking about they refuse to grow at all. They refuse to make any progress. They refuse to work on certain things. And it's not just about prayer, reading scripture. It's growing as a human being, growing as an individual. Like, listen, if you're the same person you were 10 years ago, and I'm talking about in the sense of whatever flaws you had 10 years ago, if you still got them and you've made no improvements, you're not gonna be perfect, but you've made no improvements, that's a problem. That's a problem. And so even spiritually, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, we won't be perfect. We won't get everything right. But are we at least trying to get better? You know, are we at least working on some things here and there? And even if we fall off track, do we get back on and keep moving forward? This is what we need to be mindful of. So when that person refuses to have any growth, all right, and again, undermines or discourages your growth, that is a sign of when you're dealing with someone that God does not want you to be with. All right, so now another point to consider, but before I mention it, real quick, get your copy for the ladies, get your copy of The Man God Has For You, best-selling book. Click the link in the description or in the comment section. But also for the men, I have the book, He Who Finds a Wife. I'll leave that link in the comment section as well, all right? So the next sign when God does not want you with someone is when you overlook all your other blessings because of them. Now listen, here's what I'm trying to get at here. A lot of times we become so consumed with relationships with this person that we're into, that we want, all right, or that we believe is truly for us, that we now overlook all the other good that God has done for us in our life. We overlook all the other blessings that we possess and that we've been able to enjoy and experience, right? And the reason why this would play into God not wanting you to be with someone is in the sense of more so you need to learn. It's like when they say you got to appreciate the little to receive even more. Or when you can appreciate the little, God will bless you with much more. It's like if I'm God and you have shown ungratefulness towards everything else because of this one thing that maybe isn't going exactly how you want it or moving as fast as you want it, the reason why I would not want you with them, at least for right now, is because I need you to learn some things first. I need you to learn to understand all that you have going on in your life. I need you to learn how to appreciate the little so that I can give you more. I need you to learn how not to let that one thing, that one person derail you. Because if you have fallen into the trap of overlooking all your other blessings because of what's going on with this one person, well, guess what? You are very much more likely to lose sight of your purpose. You're much more likely to lose sight of what God wants you to do in general. You're much more likely to fall away from God, all right, for this person or for whatever's going on with this person, because you have not learned how to understand and embrace everything else that's going on and has been happening in your life, all the other good that you have received. So it's more so about you having to build that foundation and learn certain principles before God wants you to be able to move forward with anybody. Because without that, here's another thing that's also hitting my spirit in which this plays out negatively in your relationship. So now let's say you get with this person, but you never learn how to appreciate the bigger picture, right? You get with this person, everything's going great, and let's say one day they make a mistake and do something wrong. And because you have not learned the principle of appreciating all that you have and not losing sight of what you have because of that one thing, you will be in a relationship where you will lose sight of all the good your partner has done because you're so fixated on this one mistake, all right? And I see this happen all the time. People, and again, some mistakes are a little bit more serious than others to where, or some issues are more serious than others to where we can't just ignore it because everything else has been good. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of people just forget everything for that one thing. and be willing and ready to throw away the entire relationship that has been amazing because of this one issue that is actually correctable, all right? Or that was actually a mistake. That's a very unhealthy thing. And so learning this principle is not just for the sake of what God wants to do with us in our lives, but it's also for the sake of you being able to successfully navigate, handle, and nurture the relationship that He is going to give you. So learn to recognize and embrace all that you have in your life and be able to look at the bigger picture of things rather than letting that one little thing, or even so, and I have to add this, letting the moment get the best of you. Because what I've learned in life is that it's about moments and perceptions, all right? How we handle the moments, how we perceived these moments, and how we perceive things in general. And so many people make horrible mistakes or make matters worse because they get lost in the moment or because they lack proper perception of things. And so you've got to learn how to get right with that. And by leaning more on God, it will help you with the perception as well as help you not to get lost in that moment so that you can rise above it and not make things worse or make a bad decision because of it. All right, so we got 2 more to go. And so now another sign of how to know when God does not want you with someone is when you put them on a higher pedestal than God. All right. So again, a lot of us, I say us because I'm guilty as well, a lot of us get so caught up in our desire for someone, in the relationships that we're in, that we don't realize we put them on a pedestal higher than God. And the easiest way to see how this plays out is where we allow their opinion of things to dictate our actions more than God's opinion or God's insight or guidance, all right? We allow ourselves to be more influenced by this person than by God. We lose sight of what God wants us to do because we're just more focused on what this person wants from us. And again, don't get me wrong, we have to have that balance of, yes, pour into your partner, embrace their needs, consider their perspective and opinions and all these things. But nobody trumps God. Nobody is above God. And we have to understand, are we giving more time, energy, love, loyalty to people than we are to God? And if we are, this is a problem. And again, God is not trying to have you be in a relationship where He's going to come second. Plain and simple. He wants it to be 2 people who put Him first, all right, and can come together and pour into each other as well. That's what's going to make the dynamic a very successful one and a one that God can trust. You 2 together will carry out the purpose. You notice purpose is a huge theme here. There is a purpose for the relationship that He wants you to be in. There's a purpose for the person that He says is for you, all right? Because He knows together you guys can accomplish what needs to be accomplished. You guys can be the example, glorify Him, all right? Be a representation of Him in the way that He desires for that to be on earth. So it's important that, again, we just make sure we do not idolize people in a way that, again, puts them higher than God. Once we recognize this issue, we must correct it. We must understand this is a very unhealthy place to be in, all right? And again, they have to be a priority, but God has to be of a higher priority always. All right, and now last but not least on how to know when God does not want you to be with someone is when He gives you the answer within your spirit. So, as I said earlier, the thing that you have to always remember, no matter if you see any of these signs playing out in your life, is you gotta go back to God and talk to Him in prayer and get that answer within your spirit. Going back to the example I gave you earlier of the woman who asked God, if this man's not for me, please remove him. And the guy never went away, so she assumed it was from God. This is why I encourage you and everyone else to not focus on what you're seeing on the surface, to learn how to hear the answer from within, to learn how to get in tune with your spirit. Because what we see, what we hear can easily deceive us. But the spirit knows the truth. The spirit is not going to fool us. We just have to learn to embrace it. The reality, some of you might be saying, well, I don't know if I'm hearing God. I feel you, I understand. And it is a struggle, especially at first when we're trying to get used to this. But I will say that many times we hear God, we just don't like what we hear. We just don't want to accept what we're hearing within our spirit. So part of this process is just learning to surrender to what we're getting from within and accept it for what it is. It may not be what we like. It may not even make any sense to us. But if that's what we're hearing in our spirit, we have to embrace that. Also, when we're struggling to hear God spiritually, fast. If you watch enough of my videos, I mention fasting a lot. It is a great way to go deeper into the spirit, to draw nearer to God, to be able to hear things clearly, to gain more clarity, all right? And that is so important when you're trying to determine who you should and should not be with. I've seen too many people make the wrong decisions because they're relying more so on, again, what they see, what they hear, other people, friends, pastors, whoever. And it's not to say none of those people could possibly give the right guidance and direction. It's just that they're not God. They don't know how this is supposed to play out. They don't know what the true answer is. They can give you what they assume for it to be, but it is best for you to make sure you don't neglect going to God yourself. Because when you can learn how to embrace and hear God's voice, you can at the very least, you can increase your chances of not moving in the wrong direction. And even if you can say, but we still don't know if that's really us or God, I'm gonna leave you with this. When you go into prayer with the genuine heart to hear what God has to say and to be willing to be obedient to what he's gonna tell you, even if for some reason you went the wrong direction, all right, or what you thought you heard wasn't him, God will make sure he sets you on the right path because you did it with the right intentions. That's the thing. Your heart was in the right place. He's not going to let you down when your heart's in the right place. But when you went into prayer hoping to hear something different, when you heard one thing and you did something different, you got to be honest with yourself. But when your intentions are right, God's going to make sure.
This next video is my last one I got for y'all. The power of walking away from a man. 3 signs it's time to move on.
But if it's really important,
let's see what they're talking about.
It starts with that one little thing that we try to tell ourselves is not a big deal. But if it's really important to us, it is a big deal. It doesn't matter how simple it seems to other individuals. If it's not going to allow us to show up to this relationship 100%, we have a serious problem.
Stefan in the house.
Once again.
Oh, I love having you here. Our honest, no BS discussions are really, really important and I think very meaningful to so many people. And today I want to start with one of the most powerful quotes I've ever heard you say. You will never be good enough for the wrong person.
Yeah.
You will never be good enough for the wrong person. So how do we know when we're in a relationship whether they are the right person or whether we should basically walk away?
So think about the quote. You'll never be good enough. So the way you'll expose them is by being your best that you can possibly be. And if it's still not good enough to make this relationship work, create harmony for both of you to be happy, then we know this isn't a match. So even look at it from the standpoint of, all right, let's say they require certain things. They require a certain level of communication from you, require a certain level of sex from you, all these things. And you know that having to do all of that seems like too much. Okay, that's already your sign this isn't gonna work. Or let's say you try it and trying it feels like a burden. It feels like this is too much to have to sustain this. So you're not gonna be able to keep this going over a long period of time. again, that has exposed you two are not best for each other. I feel that a lot of people are making it harder for themselves to see what's in front of them because they're not coming with their best self.
What do you mean by that then?
Meaning they're holding back. A lot of people have walls up. They're guarded coming into relationships. They haven't healed from past traumas. And so by holding back, you're essentially giving your partner a free pass to do the same. All right? You're essentially validating dysfunction with your own dysfunction. Now, people may not see holding back as dysfunction because to them, it's a defense mechanism. It's how we protect ourselves. But I always say the same walls you have up to protect you are the same walls blocking your blessings. Because in a relationship, love cannot flow in and out with a wall up. It's restricting your ability to receive and give it. So you don't get to see the full potential of this relationship. You don't drive out darkness with more darkness. So you're not gonna drive out their insecurities by you holding back. You're not gonna drive out where you two are not in alignment by holding back. No, by you showing up as your best self, you will get to see. And not only will you get to see if the problem is them, you'll get to see if you're lacking in certain areas. So for example, let's say to you, your best self is you have a tendency to get snarky when you have a discussion with people. Your attitude's a little, negative. And you've been conditioned to thinking, well, that's normal. We all do that. Or maybe you grew up in a family that did that. So now by being your best and that person's still saying, but no, this is an issue. Now you have to determine, okay, is this an issue that I can embrace correcting? And that means I have some things to work on? Or can I honestly say, across the board, people view this as a no problem situation or no problem characteristic that I have. Now I can say, no, the problem is you. You see? So if it is I communicate well, but you still won't open up, there's nothing left to do here. You see? But if I'm not communicating properly, how do I get to really hold them to the standard of healthy communication?
So oh my God, that's so good. So how do you know in those moments who is who? Like, is it the fact that you're not good enough at communicating or the fact that they're resistant to communicating? Because I've heard you also say, like, if you ask your friend, I'd be like, I don't understand why he's doing it. And they're like, oh, girl, you're doing a great job. It's him. But you're now asking people who see things like you. So in those moments, how can you be truthful in knowing if it is something that is a them thing or a you thing?
Yeah. So part of it, honestly, is just getting educated on what healthy relationships are really supposed to be about. And not just look at it as healthy relationships in a romantic sense, healthy relationships with other people. Because healthy communication is what you need to have with anyone you talk to. You should learn how to express yourself and how to listen, whether it's a child, a friend, a coworker, if you want to see successful outcomes in these situations. So once we start to understand that this is about how we interact with other human beings, okay? And start from that foundation, because again, if it's not healthy with them, if it's truly an issue that needs to be fixed, then more people will see it as a problem. Now you mentioned, and you're right, if you ask people who operate like you do, they will validate your behavior even if it's negative. So you've got to be willing to go outside of that circle sometimes. Or someone that you can honestly say has successful communication with people. This seems to be someone that everyone feels comfortable talking to, enjoys talking to. I enjoy talking to them. All right, this is the person I should be asking. But don't ask the person who also has a problem communicating with other individuals that other people are also shying away from opening up to. Clearly, they don't have that answer. You see, because they're not implementing that answer at the very least. So I think it's recognizing other individuals who are successful in that area, but gaining a general education of how we successfully coexist with other people in various aspects and different relationship dynamics.
God, that's amazing. But then you also have to really want to hear the truth and see the truth, because I get it. I've been that person that defends myself because I have low self-esteem. And so in those moments where maybe you've got conflict or maybe you're trying to work on this relationship, it's somewhat a protective mechanism to say it's them and not me. So I think you have to really want to hear the truth so that you can see if it's them or you, because if it is you, I now, with a growth mindset, think of that as being a beautiful thing because now I can improve myself.
Yes. And I think also consider this. So let's say you're in a relationship, your partner says, I have an issue with your communication style. And initially you're like, well, no, there's nothing wrong with it. Everyone else thinks it's fine. But listen to what they're suggesting. So first ask them, okay, well, what would you prefer? Or how would you prefer I communicate? What do you want to see? Now, if what they're suggesting is doable for you, even if you think you're fine with communication, how does it hurt you to adapt or to embrace what they're saying? Now, if while you're trying it, you're not feeling uncomfortable in the sense that you can't do this, or this is wrong, or this is going against who you are, then why not continue to do it? Because clearly it's at least a better form of communication for them. It's gonna help the relationship get better. So there is a question also of how badly do I wanna make things work with this individual? And it's always about if what they're asking me is causing me to cross a line that's against my values or makes me uncomfortable. So to use an example, let's say sexually real quick. Let's just say they're into something super kinky, all right? And that's what they want you to do more in the bedroom. But doing that goes against your personal beliefs, it disgusts you, it makes you uncomfortable. Okay, that's not something that we can then do. That's how you know, okay, we're just not a good fit then. Because the things that you need, I can't supply that. And if I try to, it will go against who I truly am and what's important to me.
But what about when it's like, well, it's not that bad. Well, it's not that bad. Sure, just, right? And then you keep telling yourself, it's not that bad. Yeah, I'll do that for them. Yeah, no. And then before you know it, you keep moving that line. Because to the point of the sexual thing, sometimes it can be that. Like, oh, you have sex in a missionary position and then all of a sudden they want something crazy. That can be so shocking that can be an easy no. But what about the ones where it's just a bit, and as a person that you really want to give to the person, you're like, maybe this is going to make our relationship better. It doesn't cross my morals, it doesn't actually cross that, value system. But that becomes the trickling effect that in 2 or 3 years, you look back and you're like, how the hell did I end up changing who I was, thinking I wasn't good enough, all because I thought that this would make our relationship better or that it would make us bond. And now I look back and I don't even recognize who I am.
So again, you have to be honest with yourself about how are those concessions making you feel? So using again sex, if let's just say the initial request is a different position, all right? And to you it's a little like, okay, it's not that bad, I'll try it. Now, if you're enjoying it after try it, well, it's a new a new tool in your toolkit that you can use for future, right? But if while doing it, you're feeling some kind of way, you're feeling, I don't know, used, you're feeling devalued maybe, whatever the case may be, then that means you made a concession that is now at conflict with who you are. So to now continue down that path would be wrong, and to continue doing it would be wrong. See, there's a lot of people who they do things for their partner that their partner wants, but they're not happy doing it. Now, I'm a personal believer that if you're not gonna be happy doing it, I don't want you doing it at all. Yes. Because then the energy behind it's gonna be very different, especially when we talk about sex. Like, I want you to be into it. So if you're not gonna be into it, let's just forget about it, all right? But I do think we have to also get to a point of understanding, whether it be sex or other things in the relationship, if what I'm requiring of you does not sit well with you. If you want to try it, cool. I think it's good to try it if it doesn't cross too far of a line for you. But if after trying it, you still feel like this is not for me, this isn't it, all right, then we just have to accept we're on 2 different pages and maybe we're not for each other, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's really, it's lovely and clear, but I think there's so many things that also get in the way with that, right? Because it's like, you've spoken about like when you invest your time, there's so much where it's like, well, we've been together for a year, we may as well try more. So these are things that I think that we can also start to ignore and not necessarily realize, hey, these were actually moments where maybe you should have really addressed it or walked away, but you don't, you kind of brush it off, maybe it's just something small, and then before you know, now you've invested your time and your energy, and your family are invested now, your friends are all invested, right? Everyone gets invested in this relationship, and now it becomes even harder to really assess whether they're right for you.
So I agree. And that's the reason why I want people to understand we've got to get to the mindset of understanding who we are first and then who we align with, who we truly fit with. Because yes, it can get tricky now with family, kids may be involved, all these different factors. But my concern is this, and this is what I've seen in my years of coaching couples. It starts with that small thing, all right? So I had one situation where there was a couple, she loved going out dancing. While they were dating, they would go dancing every week. They get married, I wanna say a month into it, no more dancing, all right? Now, to a lot of people, that's not a big deal. You know, just stay, it's okay. My concern is this. Now, first I would tell her, address it with him. Let him know how it's making you feel and that you need this as part of the relationship because that's important to you. And if he loves you, I believe he will make the correction. But let's just go with what typically happens. Either she doesn't say anything or she says it, but he has excuses, and despite all his excuses, she continues to be with him. But it doesn't change the fact that she's unhappy that she's not going out dancing anymore. So now, because she's unhappy in that area, she starts to have a little bit of resentment towards him. Now with that resentment, she can no longer be sexually receptive to him as much as he wants her to be. She might even be lost attraction to him in certain ways because he's not pouring into her in that way anymore. Well, that lack of intimacy or that holding back on intimacy, whether intentional or just no longer being as invested in it or wanting to be a part of it as much, well, now he has an attitude with her because he's not getting the sex, all right? So now in that attitude, he starts doing other stuff to piss her off. You see what's happening here? It starts with that one little thing that we try to tell ourselves is not a big deal. But if it's really important to us, it is a big deal. It doesn't matter how simple it seems to other individuals. If it's not going to allow us to show up to this relationship 100%, we have a serious problem. So if you can say that not doing this or having to do this is not going to put me in a position where I cannot be who I need to be 100% otherwise and be happy and pour into my partner, cool. But if it's going to have that negative impact on you, you can't overlook it. You can't ignore it. It could be as simple, and I use the word simple, but it really is a real issue, the lifestyle two people want to live. I've seen couples where, for example, the woman is what some would consider bougie, all right? She loves a more fine living, luxurious lifestyle, okay? But the guy, the husband, he's the type where if he sees a dirty couch on the corner, he's like, oh, new couch. Dust it off, we're ready to go, right? So to a lot of people, they might say to the woman, oh, he's a good man. You shouldn't worry about it. That's not a reason to divorce, not a reason. Well, one, if we would have took time to recognize these differences early on and accept them for what they were, we wouldn't even be this far in this relationship. So the key is learning how to cut these things off as soon as possible. But let's just say we already went that far. We're married. The fact remains that she now has resentment because this man wants to live a lifestyle contrary to where she finds her happiness, all right? It's not for anyone else to say, well, you shouldn't want luxurious. No, that's who she is. Some people like those things. Some people don't care for those things. But when you try to put them together, you're asking for problems. And again, it starts with, well, he wants to bring this dirty old couch into my home when I want him to go buy a new couch. And we got the money for a new couch, but he's too cheap. So no, he wants this dirty couch instead. All right, now I have an attitude. While I have an attitude with him, I'm not gonna be sleeping with him the same. Now he has an attitude because you're not showing the same love anymore. And it just keeps going from there. And then when they come to me, they're arguing about what just recently happened, right? That blew everything up. But they're ignoring all the root issue that was happening before then. That started with, you two wanna live a different lifestyle. And you two are out of alignment with each other. It's extremely difficult to fix that unless you guys just find a way where it's almost like she would have to have her own money where she can buy what she wants and he'd have to be okay with whatever she buys and then he can live cheap. But even then, living in the home together, they're gonna still clash.
My God, as you were talking, so my husband Tom, when I met him, I walk into his apartment and he's like, oh yeah, I found this couch. So it's so funny that you're saying this. So here I am, bougie, right? What car are you driving? Oh my God, he didn't even change, clothes or whatever. I go to his apartment, his couch literally he found on the street. So completely different. But what's interesting, as you were talking, is going back to something you said earlier, is how do you feel? Because when I saw, like, he's like, oh my God, isn't this, like, look at this couch. He was so proud of himself. He was like, yeah, I found this couch on the street. Isn't this amazing? And I'm like, oh God. But what was amazing in that moment was he kind of enlightened me a little. I was like, look how happy he seems with just a crappy couch. Like, it almost, I was impressed by it. And I was like, that's such a lovely, light-hearted way of seeing things. And here I am thinking, oh my God, the couch. I was like, it's actually better to be like him. So it was interesting that even though we came from different worlds, like what you were saying, I think it then goes to how do you feel when this happens?
Exactly.
Because I wasn't being snooty, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Yes.
I was actually embracing it. Now, I will say, he goes to work one day, so we're dating, we're maybe a month in. I clean the couch. I spent like 5 hours. It was a white couch, so you can imagine it was filthy. So I clean the whole, I'm scrubbing it. Now I'm doing it because in my head I'm like, if you have to sit on a couch that's found on the street, at least wash it. So I'm cleaning it. He comes back from work and he's like, this is the best woman ever. She cares about me enough to clean the couch. So he doesn't realize I'm doing it for my sake. Now, of course, we talk about the story after and we're like, oh, we did it for completely different reasons. But going back to the point that I wanted to make is that even if there is someone that is different from you and you think differently, going back to how does that make you feel is the important aspect, because I didn't frown upon him the fact that he was different. It actually intrigued me more.
Yes, and that's the thing, because imagine had you been disgusted and continue to be disgusted. Now your ability to even view him in a certain light is completely hindered at that point and derails everything. And this is why, again, I'm such a believer in connection, because I believe when there is connection, differences can actually complement each other and find joy in each other. Whereas when there's not a connection and there's those differences, it will conflict. You cannot come together. And that's, to me, I think that story just gives more proof to you guys having a connection more than anything. But yes, as you mentioned, you did not feel some kind of way. So if we're trying something different, if we're trying what we're not accustomed to, but they need from us, and then we find like, oh, this isn't so bad. Oh, okay, I can do this. Then that's great. But if you're doing it and the whole time you're wishing, like, I wish I didn't have to do this. This sucks. I hate this. That's a problem,
I don't think we ask ourselves enough questions to understand ourselves.
Yes.
We kind of like, and I'm speaking for myself here, like I used to just go into perpetual motion and be like, oh, I guess that is, and I would never question things. And I've heard you speak about actually when someone's in a situation where they're not sure if this relationship is actually working, like, do I stay, do I go? Am I good enough? Are they the right one for me? Like all these things that we say, I've heard you actually say one simple question. It's like, why are you staying? So talk to me about asking ourselves that question, how that can impact us, and then what other things we can do to really decipher whether if this is a relationship that we should really put our time and energy because there is a future, or if it's actually time to just walk away.
Yeah, so definitely we have to ask ourselves that question because, as you said, a lot of times we're running from the reality of our situation because we don't want to face certain questions. We don't want to deal with what's going on deeper within us. And many, whether it be a woman's intuition, hearing your spirit, God, or even just other people giving you insight and telling you this isn't it, but you don't want to have to accept that. So you keep trying to look past that and focus your energy on whatever you're trying to accomplish or that one good thing you can use to validate being here. Okay?
Go on.
So what comes to mind as an example of that? There's two things that I have found women use as a shield to defend staying where they don't belong. It's I love him and the sex is great. Those are the two things. Reason being is because when they say, but I love him, they know that people will try to work with trying to rationalize why you should give it a chance. So basically, if I come to you and I say, this has been a problem and all boom, 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 but I hit you with, but I love him so much, There's a part of you that wants to find, like, okay, let me see if I can give her some hope here. Let me see if I can give her a reason why it's okay to try this. Or I will feel less willing to push back against your desire to stay. So it's this great defense mechanism, and I say great not because it actually should be used, but it's effective.
Powerful, yeah.
Yes. And so a lot of women, whether consciously or subconsciously, understand that. The other one is the sex is great. Because if you ever notice, people can have a discussion and they can talk about all the bad things going on. And the minute they say, but the sex is amazing, the other person says, oh, I get it.
Because you kind of do.
Yeah, now I understand. Go ahead, continue as you are, right? And what's crazy is, I'm gonna throw out this number. In 90% of the cases, it's not great. They're just saying it because, again, they know by saying it, you'll fall back. You won't push them to face the reality of you don't belong here. This is not for you. So going back to asking yourself, why am I here? Yes, because that why could be fear of being alone. That why could be fear of starting all over. That why could be my time clock is ticking and I'm getting older and I want to have kids and I want to have marriage. That why could be I told myself I would be married and have kids by this age, and I refuse to deviate from that plan. And if I already deviated somewhat, I don't want it to go too much further. That why could be friends and family putting pressure. When are you gonna have a baby? When are you gonna have a man? What's going on? What's wrong with you? That pressure builds up to where women will settle for a man, and men do the same thing, settle for someone just to appease family and friends. The why, there's a lot of reasons why it could be happening, but once we understand and accept the why, if the why is anything other than...
One of the biggest fallacies is that relationships shouldn't be work. Say what? We put time, effort, and hard work into growing our careers or our business, but love should just happen? After 20 years of being married, all starts with being willing to ask and answer hard questions. I have a free downloadable PDF for you for a happy, successful, lasting love. Click the link below for free access to the most important questions you must ask your partner PDF.
I have a connection with this person. We have something special here, and I know that we can make this work. Then that means you don't need to be there. That means you need to address the why. And in addressing the why, so if the why is, I'm afraid to be alone. Okay, now why are you afraid to be alone? Let's go deeper. You don't stop there. Keep asking more whys. Why am I afraid to be alone? Where did this start? Where did this come from? All right? Now when we address that, here's the beautiful thing about healing. Because understand that the lack of healing and all the things I mentioned contribute to a lack of healing, because even if you view it as family pressure, well, that pressure is hurting you. And if you're holding on to that hurt, and for some it might feel like shame, that can push you into being in a relationship that you shouldn't be in.
Single shaming is very real.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So once you're able, though, to heal and address and resolve those whys and release them, now you're left with, do I really like this person? Now it becomes so much clearer, because if those motivations are now resolved and gone, now you're like, wait a minute, I don't really care for this individual. It's kind of like how you'll have some women, and it kind of goes back to what you mentioned earlier about you're trying to be this person to make it work and only to look back and like, how did I get here? So you'll have a lot of women, and again, this can happen to men as well, where they play this role to get a man, all right? Which is why I'm so against tips and tricks on how to get a man, because yeah, you might get him, but then you wake up 5-10 years later and you're like, who the hell is this man next to me? Why am I here? This is not me. This does not work for me. You were not walking in your truth the whole time.
Change yourself to please somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah. And now another why that happens is, I don't want to face the reality that I chose the wrong person. I don't want to face the reality that I lived this life and gave all this energy for nothing. And it's not really for nothing, but it feels like for nothing in that moment when you're faced with, do I leave? I did all this and built all this, even if it was on a fake representation of self. It's hard to now accept that, acknowledge that, and say I have to walk away from it. So what happens is, rather than asking why we're here, we start trying to tell ourselves why we should stay. Well, you know, the kids. Well, you know, the family loves him. Well, you know, I don't want to have to be single and dating again. I don't know what's out there. You know, all these things. You start to convince yourselves why you should stay rather than asking yourself, why are you here to begin with?
God, that's so powerful. And everything we're saying really is understanding yourself, because I think that's where the power comes, is understanding why maybe you've stayed, asking yourself all those questions. Like if you say, and I love that, you're giving us very tactical things for us to then start to dig deep within ourselves. So if you're the type of person that's right now in a relationship, you're not sure, maybe it's tumultuous, you're not sure whether you should stay or go, like even just saying, okay, why are you staying? If your answer is because I love him or because the sex is great, okay, don't judge yourself. Like I'm all about us always giving ourselves the grace to just say this is, and now how do I want to show up? So if you're using those answers to now go a little deeper and say, okay, well, the love thing, okay, if we can acknowledge this is a thing that's not allowing me to go deeper, cool, no judgment, let me just write that down. And now what are those questions?
Let me add to that, because you can go deeper. All right, so your answer is you love him. Why? Why do you love him? I once asked a woman that question, and everything she listed was what she did for him. So her belief of the love she had for him was really an attachment she had based on the investment she was making into him, and the hope that she would get a return on that investment. All right? So even if you say the sex is great, okay, why is it great? You should be able to tell me. Because again, it's very easy to use it as a superficial answer to kind of just say, okay, well, that's the reason why we don't need to go any further. No. Tell me more. Tell me more, because a lot of times they can't. Now it's like they'll get stumped and like, well, you know, it's just fun. No, why? Are you actually getting your needs met? Are you actually satisfied? Is he actually pouring into you as well? Because here's the thing, if you say to me you love someone, again, I believe that real love is a two-way thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna throw that out there real quick. Maybe I'm wrong with what I'm about to say, but to me, for you to be able to say you are in love with someone or love someone in a romantic sense, for a romantic relationship, and they do nothing for you, I think that's impossible. Because it's almost like there's nothing for you to love. You're attached. You're holding on to a fantasy in your head. Love requires that you're feeling something back and forth. There's something flowing between the two of you. That's how you're able to be like, okay, yes, I love them because of how I feel when I'm around them, their presence, and yes, the things that they're able to pour into me. And it's not just about what they do for me, but it's about who they are as a person. And so again, this person who does nothing for you, what about them are you so in love with? What about them are you so into? And there's a lot of women who right now could not answer that question, but they're still there because they're hoping that he can become what they've put in their own heads about him, but they're not facing the reality of who he is.
Oh God, that's so good. One of my friends, Najwa Zabayan, she's a poet, and she talks about heartbreak. And one of the things she very eloquently says is she basically was in love with the fact that she was the helper, that she was the one that was saving him. And because she'd already gone through heartbreak, she saw a guy who had gone through what she had gone through, and she felt needed. And so what she had invested into the relationship, and at the end when she was asking herself the why, it was all about that she was saving him, and that made her feel good about herself. Because as a lot of women are very nurturing, we really do care about people, and so we fall in love with the feeling it gives us, that we are there for them, not the fact that it is a reciprocation where I love them and they love me.
Exactly. So again, you're attached to the feeling. You're not in love with the person. You see? And so you have to ask yourself, okay, if they did not need me right now, if I could not pour into them in those ways right now, would I still want to be around them? Will I still enjoy their presence? Can I still talk to them? Can I lean on them in the times that I need someone to lean on? Even though we talked about, how you have to show up for yourself, but yes, as partners, we do have to be able to show that we can be support for each other. And if that man is none of those things, then again, you have to recognize the difference between what you're holding on to, and so many people are holding on to the fantasy, the feeling, but not the person. And that's why, like, when some relationships end, The woman is more devastated about the fact that her chance of getting married is gone. Her chance at having kids has been set back. Her chance of now being able to have someone she can go to family dinners with is gone. She doesn't miss the person. She missed what it represented.
Oh, and the dream that it could have, what could have happened.
Yes, what it meant as far as all these situations that she would now have this man with her and what that represented for her and all these things. But it wasn't the man. He was just filling a space. He's pretty much interchangeable. That's a bad sign. You should not be with someone who just feels so, like I can just remove them, put someone else in their place, and I'm gonna be just as good.
Yeah, I don't think we realize we're doing it. I think it's very subconscious. So that's why I really love what we're talking about, because again, I'm always the person that's like, oh, well, if we're naturally inclined to do X, Y, and Z, how do we recognize it? How do we change our behavior? Because, if we know better, we hope to do better.
Yeah.
But if we don't know better, we may not even realize that these are the things that we're doing.
Well, I honestly feel like deep inside, a woman has some level of understanding, but again, there's the battle of what she wants it to be. There's also the battle of other people, what they're saying about the situation and what they're convincing her should be normal. So again, let's say a woman's with a very toxic man. Let's say, I once had a situation where there was a guy stalking his girlfriend. And he parked outside of her house, watching her throughout the entire night, right? And I was talking to the girl and her mother, and the situation came up, and the mother was like, what's wrong with that? That's what, if a man loves you, he should be willing to do that. And so here was the mother normalizing this very toxic behavior. So it wasn't that the woman did not sense something's not right for this man to be acting like this. But when you have someone else telling you, no, that's not a problem, or if let's say you got cheated on, or let's say you were even physically abused, but you come from a family that the lineage has had abusive relationships. And they're all gonna say to you, oh, well, that's how men get sometimes. Don't worry about it, it's okay. Because if they didn't leave their situation, how are they gonna push you to leave yours? And in order to feel okay about the fact that they accepted that situation, they have to make you accept yours. Because now if you leave, they have to ask themselves, why didn't I leave? And that's a hard pill to swallow. So I think that a lot of it is influence from other people who convince this woman that, nah, this is okay, as well as, again, she wants so badly for this to work that she ignores what she knows deep inside. Because I'll say this, every woman that I've sat down who is divorced, and I asked them, did you know this was truly the man for you or not? And I even asked, did you pray and ask God about this man? 90% will say they never prayed and asked. 10% will say they prayed, asked, they felt it was a no, and they married him anyway. So I've yet to meet the woman who says, I felt this was the man, I never saw any issue, I believe this was it was a match made in heaven, and yet here we are, completely divorced and devastated. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I don't know.
I'm sure there is.
Yes, but it's a rare occurrence. Most of the time, most women can pinpoint. So again, I think that in most cases, there is a level of, I see what's happening here, but I don't want to look at it too long, so let me go look over here instead. Let me distract myself. And that's another thing that happens. So you start having kids, well, the kids become your distraction, or they become your buffer, I like to call it. So there are a lot of couples where the only reason they're able to stay together is because of work and kids. They don't have to deal with each other as much. So they don't have to deal with the reality that they don't fit together. You see? And now they can use kids and work as a way to validate why I'm still here. But they don't belong there.
God, there's so much there that was so important, dude. That was so powerful. The thing that really hit me was the belief part where we've been told, because if you're told, oh, guys cheat, you do normalize it. And so even with everything we're talking about, like whether this relationship is the right one, whether you need to walk away or not, there are things that I think are very powerful for us to start asking questions, to almost challenge our own belief system, because maybe we've normalized things and we don't realize we have.
Yeah.
Because I definitely am not blaming women. It's like, oh my God, women, you gotta sort your shit out. It's like, oh shit, you may have a certain mindset and a belief system that we even don't realize is exactly what is causing us to have these bad relationships. And maybe it's time to walk away, but we're not walking away because we have a belief system that doesn't make us realize that is the answer. And as you were talking, there were two things. When I was getting married to Tom, My grandfather, so my grandparents grew up in a tiny, tiny village in the mountains of Cyprus. Their toilet was a hole in the floor. So I just want to give you an example of how old school they are.
Yeah.
My grandmother only learned to read by reading the Bible because women didn't go to school or were taught to read. So just to kind of paint the picture. So I go to get married. My grandfather calls me into the bedroom the night before the wedding. It was like one of those scenes from The Godfather, where he like, come in, sit down, he pats the bed. And he gives me this whole speech about, as being a good wife, it means I need to obey my husband. That was the whole speech.
Okay.
Basically, if you're gonna get married as a good Greek wife, these are the rules. You need to obey your husband. That's gonna make your marriage amazing. So that was his piece of advice. My grandmother doesn't travel because she was scared to go on planes. So a year later, I go to Cyprus to see her. She meets Tom for the first time. She loves him, and she pulls me aside. Her advice to me was, now look, if a man has to hit you because maybe you've been out of place, don't worry, it's fine, that's normal. She actually told me, now look, at this point, I'm like translating to my husband and him going, do you know what she just said? Hells no, right? So I'm joking about it because I realize that's utter ludicrous. But remember, I'm thinking it's utter ludicrous, but she's actually saying it with a dead straight face.
Yeah, she's serious.
She really freaking means that as a woman, as the wife, if the husband has to put you in his place or in your place by slapping you, it is what it is. And so to your very point about these things may be normal to us because that's all we know, it's super powerful. So what are those steps? Is it writing down what these types of behaviors are and if we feel they're normal? Like, how do we start to break apart whether this relationship that we have is set on a belief system that is unhealthy or that is something that maybe it just needs more communication and it can actually improve, and look, it's actually going to be worth it because there is light at the end of the tunnel.
So I think the simplest way to break it down or to look at it is, if whatever that action is or whatever that behavior is impacting you in a way that doesn't allow you to show up to the relationship 100% in your true best self, it's unhealthy. So it doesn't matter how normal it is. So again, if, let's say, using physical abuse, if someone normalizes physical abuse, but that physical abuse now makes you more timid around your husband, feeling less safe, doesn't allow you to be as happy and as cheerful, it doesn't matter how normal it was from the families that you came from and what they passed down to you. It's unhealthy because you can't live in your truth. You can't live in your happiness. You can't live in your peace. You see what I'm saying? So even let's talk about, like, there's people who normalize a lack of a sex life in marriage. Having sex once a month, once every 2 months, right? And again, if you can honestly tell me that despite that, you two can show up 100% for each other and love each other and do all these things, fine. That means it works for you. But if you know that's causing resentment, anger, whatever the case may be, it's causing you to even want to look outside the marriage, then it's unhealthy. It doesn't matter how many people are doing it. It doesn't matter how normal it is. And really the real word is how common it is. You see, I don't like to use the word normal because, again, that's how we kind of normalize it, you know? So it's like, no, it's a common thing, but it's an unhealthy thing. So to me, anything that's at conflict with you and your spirit, we need to address it. And we should not accept it. So it doesn't matter what it is. So even using the example of, I'm thinking about, like, if a man is with, going back to the whole lifestyle thing, a man's with a woman that likes to spend money and she has him spending a ridiculous amount of money to where it has him feeling nervous, uneasy, uncomfortable. This is unhealthy. It may seem like not a big deal to someone else, but if it's putting you in that position to now where you can't show up the way you need to show up, and let's be real, if you're not able to show up 100% in your relationship, trust and believe you're not showing 100% in other aspects of your life. That stuff lingers. So people can think, oh, I can be in this unhealthy relationship but be the greatest mom ever. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can be a great mom. I think it's possible to still be a great mom. But are you your best self? Are you really giving your kids what they deserve? No, because your cup is empty. You're drained. If you were getting your cup filled, it'd be a different story. So to be operating in that dynamic and still show up the way you need to show up, no. Even at work, if you're at resenting the fact that you don't get enough love at home, enough respect and support at home, when you get to work, your vibe initially is gonna be down. you're not gonna have the same focus. You're not gonna be as excited about things because in the back of your head, you're thinking, I have to go back to this house where I'm neglected. And then you have these situations where people don't even wanna go home. They wanna fire, and this is again where you start hiding behind work. You know, taking on more tasks. I knew one person, a woman, who she was like in every single activity. All right, so she had work, she had after school activities with the kids, and then she had extra stuff on her own. And all of it boiled down to she was not happy at home. If you were happy at home, you're gonna clear your pay as much as possible so you can enjoy your partner. But you know ain't no happiness there, so you're like, well, let me just stay outside of the house because I'm not prepared to leave them, but I know I can't get what I need from them either.
So does it start with really just writing down how certain things make you feel? Because again, if you don't realize it's actually not normal or not common, you may just think of it as fact.
Yes, so I do think writing it down would be beautiful. I think writing things down is an amazing exercise. You know, it's part of what I use in the healing process. Even the very first step is creating what I call the who hurt me list, where you ask yourself who hurt me, and then everyone who comes to mind, you put them on the paper. Doesn't matter if you think it's irrelevant or you think you're past it. If they come to mind, there's something significant there. And in a couple senses of what they did to hurt you. And what that exercise does is allows you to put the hurt out in front of you. And you may be surprised who comes out because you've been suppressing stuff for so long. But when you ask yourself that question and really allow yourself to dive deep within yourself, you start to uncover a lot of things. So going back to what we talk about, understanding what is not healthy for us and doesn't work for us, writing it down is great because now you're putting it out in front of you. See, what happens to a lot of people is in that moment, this didn't feel good, I didn't like it, but now I move to the next distraction to not actually process what just happened here. You see, so I never really deal with the fact that I'm not happy about this. And because I'm not dealing with it properly, I can't articulate it properly to my partner, so it goes unaddressed. Because that's another issue that I would find. Even though we're talking about like recognizing when you should leave and that point that you have to walk away, there's a lot of relationships that end and both parties don't really know what the issue actually was.
Really?
Yes, because it wasn't properly articulated. And again, the issue that they're arguing about is on the surface and they're not going beneath it. They're not understanding. And let me also say this, because a lot of women don't realize, and I say this with love, you have to be very clear and specific with men. We don't read between the lines very well, okay? So you may think we should be getting it, and we really don't because you have to say it for what it is. So here's another example where I had a client, he was going to go see his family with his fiance. They're out there, and I guess it's time to go to sleep and shower up, and the family laid out towels or whatever, but there was only enough for him. The girlfriend or the fiance flips out on him, right? You know, you never consider me, you know, so on and so forth. And his response is, it's just a towel. And so when he came to me, I was like, no, she wasn't mad about the towel, man. Okay, listen to what she was trying to say to you. You don't consider her. She doesn't feel like she's, you know, a priority in your life. That's the real issue. The towel situation was just the example at that moment. But for a lot of men, even though she may have said it, because the main focal point was, why weren't there any towels out here? He's thinking, oh, she's just mad because there's no towels. Let me just make sure next time she has her towels. No, problem's not solved. So you have these couples that end up in divorce or break up, and both parties may not have understood. So the man tends to not understand because, again, his struggle with reading between the lines and her not being as concise and clear about what the issue is. The woman tends to not always understand because the man never even said anything. He didn't, because he may have felt like there's no point in telling her, she's not gonna listen, so he kind of shut down on her and he didn't fully express what she needed to know. Or he tried it once and she didn't receive it well and he stopped after that. So he may have said it at least one time, but he didn't make an effort to really break down and help her understand why I feel like this. And going back to another example of when it's time to go, sometimes you have tried and you've expressed everything and you've been clear, but they refuse to get it because they don't want to get it. They don't want to accept your way of doing things. They don't want to accept what you need. And that just means you guys don't belong together and it's time to walk away.
Yeah. So true. I love the towel thing, by the way, because as you were saying, I was like, but also there is the other side to it where, let's say as the female, you feel like you're getting neglected. They're just not paying attention, right? They're not being kind. Maybe they're not thinking about you. And, I think a partnership, really, you should be thinking about each other. And so let's say they've let it go because it's not a big deal. It's just a towel. It's just this. It's just that. And then let's say you've done it 5 or 6 times. And I know, I'm just going to put my hand up and say I've done this to poor Tom, where I've let things go because I've realized it's just a bloody towel, Lisa. It doesn't mean he doesn't care about you. And so you let it go, you let it go, you let it go. And then the 10th time, you're like, I can't believe you didn't put a towel out for me. Now, in that moment, as I'm telling him, hey, I'm upset about the towel, it's hard for me to articulate it's because I don't feel thought of. Because his response may be, it's just a fucking towel.
Yeah.
So now I feel like he's not going to get it because if I just say it's because of the towel, he won't understand. Now if I go, because you didn't put a towel out, let me express to you why I don't feel thought of. And now it's like I've got this laundry list of things and he may say, wow, all that emotion around the towel. So now part of your issue is being diminished. Tom never did this, but it can be diminished by the other person because all they're hearing, they can't understand you. So all they're hearing is it's the towel. And now you feel bad that you've spoken out and maybe got teary over something that's a towel, even though we know it's not.
Yeah, so one, this is why we have to create space to communicate our feelings when they happen or as soon as possible. We can't let things linger and kick the can down the road. So it's one thing to say, I'm gonna let it go because it's only a towel, if you generally are no longer bothered by it. But to say, I'm gonna let it go, it's only a towel, and I don't, because what you're really saying is, I don't wanna deal with having to deal with his reaction to me saying something. That's a problem. So you're running from this unwanted potential outcome because we don't even know how he's gonna handle it. You've convinced yourself he's gonna handle it this way, and now it builds up, it builds up, it builds up. I also think that, again, when that woman is going through that experience, she has to understand it's not about the towel. And it's not just about you feeling neglected in that moment. The reality is that you've been feeling like this. The reality is that he showed you this in other ways, but because you were either afraid to address it before or did not know how you wanted to say it or whatever, you kept suppressing and suppressing and suppressing. So yes, now that the towel is the trigger to now everything coming out, and let's be honest, in that moment, it's like emotionally dumping on someone, and that's hard to take all of that. And I think that for some men, to stay on it being a towel is a defense mechanism. Because okay, this is way too much to deal with right now. I'm just gonna be like, yo, you tripping about a towel, right? Because the minute if I acknowledge all this other stuff, this is a whole new discussion. I'm not trying to go down that route. So I'm gonna keep it on the towel while you're trying to bring it to something else. And we have this conflict. But I think that also again speaks to how we're communicating throughout the relationship consistently about what is and isn't working for us. That's why I'm a huge believer in a relationship checkup. So part of creating a structure of communication, I believe there should be a set day. Maybe it's once a month, once every few months, maybe 6 months, maybe once a year, whatever works for people. But this is an agreed upon time that we make time to sit down and we go over what's working, what's not. What I need to see improve on both sides, we get everything out, And that way, because we have an agreed upon structure, it's so much easier to come to the table and one, be prepared to talk and be prepared to listen. Because we already know this is coming, all right? And I think the earlier we can establish that, the better, because that's the thing, the bad thing that happens to so many people is that the issues linger and they start to pile up.
Right.
And now, it becomes so much harder to, in that moment, address everything that stems from feeling neglected rather than just that one moment. But had we been addressing them one by one as they went along, then when this moment happens, we would only be focused on the moment. And that'll be so much easier to get through. Because here's the other problem that happens. So, okay, let's keep using the towel. You're mad about the towel, you're mad about feeling neglected. To him, the simple solution should be, okay, I'm sorry. Next time I'll put a towel out there for you. I understand, I forgot it. But you can't accept it at that moment. You know why? Because he's been doing this over and over and over again. So you don't believe his sorry. You don't believe it's gonna finally change because he kept this pattern up for so long. And that's why we have to address it sooner, so it doesn't become a pattern. And to his defense, he didn't know. He may not have been aware this was an issue this entire time. And again, this goes back to a lot of women feeling like, but he should know. How does he not know better? He's a grown man. But a lot of men are clueless to how that woman, specifically in his life, is feeling about certain actions. And unless you tell him, he just doesn't know any better.
Oh, God, it's so true. But I used to think that was kind of BS. I was like, that's just their excuse. I was like, come on, you know. Like, when I say this, you get it. Until one time where I was hinting to my husband about a Christmas gift. And it was just like a Christmas gift, but I was hinting. Because I was like, you don't say it out loud. You don't actually come out and say the truth. You kind of, like hint around it. So for about 2 months before Christmas, I was hinting. This was one of our first Christmases together. So he was at his family's and I was at my family. And he got me this box and I was like, okay, feels like the right size. I think he's nailed it, right? And I'm feeling it. And I'd been hinting to him the whole time. I'd seen this watch at Guess. It was like this beautiful little watch. And I'd hinted to him. I was like, oh, I love Guess. And like, oh my God, that watch is really nice. And Christmas is coming up, right? I think these are very obvious hints. So I get the box, I go to open it, and he goes, I know, I've got your hint. I've got it nailed down. So I open the box. It's teeth whitening strips. I'm like, I'm sorry? I hinted at a watch. You thought I was hinting at teeth whitening strips for Christmas. And he was so convinced he nailed it. And in that moment, I was like, oh dear Lord. Like, yes. I just need to come out and tell him because he was so proud. He felt so much pride over the fact that he had listened, he'd paid attention, he thought he got it. And I was like, if we're that far off from a gift where he thinks I would want teeth whitening strips for Christmas, what else do we think we're saying to each other, but we're not?
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up that story because think about, there's so many times where men have tried so hard to make their partner happy, thinking they figured it out, only for her to be so disappointed and disgusted. So like, I don't know how you handled that moment.
I laughed.
But okay.
Yeah, how can you not? It was so funny, teeth whitening strips.
Well listen, I'm glad you laughed because other people would have been in disgust. There's a lot of women who make that man feel like if it's not what she wanted, it's like you did nothing, all right? And that can deflate a man. That can make him feel like, what's the point of trying anymore? No matter how hard I try, it doesn't work. But the only reason why it's not working is because he does not understand what she's looking for. And she feels like he should know what she's looking for. And I always say, so on one end, I feel like women aren't as good at dropping hints as they think they are. All right?
Clearly I wasn't, let's face it.
And then on the other end, men are horrible at reading hints. All right? Same thing happens even in the dating process where you're trying to get a man's attention and a lot of guys, they just don't catch it. Even me, I can be very oblivious. I can walk down the street and I'm not noticing anything. And if I'm with a friend, they're like, did you not see this woman staring at you trying to get you? And I'm like, where, right? So in relationships and in marriage and all these things, a lot of men, like, they'll say to me, if I just knew what she wanted, I would do it. Like, some cases are men that are not willing to pour into their partner, and they're just not the man for her. Other cases are men who love their partner, love their woman, wants to make her happy, but he doesn't know what to do.
And I think that that's where it comes to the intention, because Tom really, like, leading up to it, he kept saying, I'm so proud I figured it out. Like, so his intention was so beautiful. He really did try to figure it out. And so when I saw the intention, I was like, well, what am I going to do? Like, if I'm now disgusted, it's like slapping him in the face.
Yeah,
like that's actually just a cruel thing to do.
Yes.
And because of that, he was actually so heartbroken because he was so excited that he thought he figured it out, that afterwards he's like, please, for my own heart, like for the sake of my own heart, please just tell me because I want to make you happy. And I failed, and now I feel badly. And then of course I started to feel badly. I was like, well, I don't want you to feel badly. But it all came to the intention. I think that's why I ended up laughing. And this was 20 years ago, and the story still stuck with us.
Yes. But look at that, even with you just laughing at it, he was still disappointed because he didn't hit the mark the way he thought. And that's what I'm saying. Like, a man who loves a woman really wants to make her happy, takes joy in it. Even if you don't hit the mark all the time, you want to feel like she genuinely appreciates this and this meant something to her. The thing with men is, if they do something and they feel like it doesn't get a positive response, they will stop doing it. So it's like if a man started to bring flowers to his wife every week, and at some point he just felt like she's just very neutral about it. Okay, here's my flowers, puts it to the side, that's it. There's gonna come a point where he stops giving the flowers. But if she's always showing how much she loves it and appreciates it, and she's pouring back into him, he's gonna keep giving her those flowers. You know, if he genuinely loves her. So I think this goes back to the differences between men and women. Women want men to be able to read the situation and understand it because that's what y'all do. All right? You guys are evaluating every little detail. You notice this. But here's what's funny. Women will dig deeper into the details. They'll analyze a lot better than the man. But a lot of times y'all might still get it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
All right? And you rely more on your analyzation rather than actually what he said. So, for example, you could ask a man, what do you want for your birthday? And he could say, I just want to have a nice night with you at home, my favorite meal, that's it, right? And the woman thinks to herself, I'm gonna throw him a surprise party. He's never had a surprise party yet. I know he's gonna love that, right?
He told me he wanted this, but he doesn't really mean it. Oh my God.
And then what happens is, so now it's in reverse. So you see how Tom felt like he had it, but he was wrong. And he wanted to see that response from you that said he nailed it. Well, now on the flip side, this woman decides to do what she thinks would be better rather than what he said. And then when he doesn't show excitement to it, she's pissed off.
Because you've gone into all this work and
Exactly.
effort.
I did all of this and you're not appreciating what I did. But to that man, it's like, I didn't ask for this. I told you I wanted that thing over there. Like, men have no problem being very clear. So you don't have to interpret as much when it comes to what we want.
And they'll flip it the other way. If the guy asks a woman and she's like, I just want a night at home, she gets home and it's just a night at home. It's like, where's the party?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
I make fun, but there is, and so this is why it's important. Like, I love this conversation because I'm all about, like, we just perceive things differently.
Yes.
And if there's no right or wrong here, it's like, look, us women, we do a certain way. And does it give you the results you're looking for? And that was the biggest key with me and Tom, where it's like, I felt like, well, if I have to tell him, then, does he care? And I was like, well, hang on, am I getting the results I want? Yes or no? And the answer was no. And he felt badly because he wasn't getting the results either. So I was like, oh, this actually, in me trying to quote unquote test him, is actually making it worse. And that was the one thing he just said, please don't test me. Like, don't test me that I'm going to guess, because I'm going to be bad at it.
Yes.
And so I'm always going to fail, and that's going to make you feel like you're not thought of, but it's not the case.
Exactly.
And so being able to have that transparent conversation is super important. And as you were talking about what we kind of say and like what we actually mean, I just learned actually say it. Like, babe, I want to party, I want to go to Vegas, I want to do it. And now that's exactly how we communicate, because I used to be the person that wanted the surprises. If you surprise me, it meant you love me. And I just realized I wasn't getting the results. So now we just changed our conversation to what do you actually want? And don't test the other person, just tell them. But I was the person, Stefan, that I thought guys wanted the sexy lingerie, the candles. So literally one night I'm surprising Tom, and I bought this special lingerie, and I put candles everywhere, and I put a blanket out, and I put soft music on, and he walks in the door, and then afterwards he's just like, you could just have floodlights and be naked on the bed, and like, I'm very happy. Like, the candles and the lingerie are for you. And I was like, what? I was like, this uncomfortable bloody lingerie isn't for me. He's like, I just want to get it off you. Now look, I understand not every guy's like that, but in just realizing, oh, he doesn't actually care about all that. And now if I'm projecting what I think he wants onto him, actually it's not fair on him either.
Exactly.
And also it makes my life easier as well, not to have to now guess.
Exactly.
Business checking with no monthly maintenance fee, so you don't chew through your profits.
Exactly. And I think, even if you like surprises, then you have to understand that you can't have an expectation on the surprise.
Ooh.
You see? So it's like, okay, I understand that it can be anything. I don't know what it will be. I would just be happy that it was a surprise. It was spontaneous. I didn't expect it. And I'll appreciate that. But in the moments where I know I want a specific thing, yes, it would be wise for a woman to just be straightforward about this is what I would like. This is what I would want. Make the man's life easier. And again, I think some women have this mentality of, well, if you tell him, you're making it easy for him. Like, again, it's not showing that he cares enough to find out. But him doing it shows that he cares.
Yes, that's the effort.
You know, there are tons of women right now who can tell their man exactly what they want, and he won't do it. So the fact that a man does, that's something to appreciate and celebrate. So I think, women have to just be more willing to be honest about it. But I will say this. I do encourage men to try to learn to get more in tune with their partner and try to get to a point where you can read her a little bit better. I don't think we'll ever be perfect with it because we're not you. You know, we don't live in your bodies. But I do think that we can at least get to some better level of being in tune that will be very beneficial and that would make the woman happy. And I think both sides have to give each other some grace. Because in the process of learning each other and understanding each other on a deeper level, it takes some time to develop that. I think the most important thing is that there's a willingness to learn and a willingness to accept and embrace how the other person feels and sees things, and how we can find that middle ground to make each other happy with it.
That's why I love these conversations, Stefan, because that's the point of, let's just have the real talk. Let's just really talk about the stuff that how men think, how women think, and again, we're not being completely generic. There's going to be absolutely many circumstances that don't align with this.
Yes.
But I was that person, Stefan, that was like, but if he loves me, he'll nail it. He'll know the surprise, my expectations will be met. And it was only because time after time, I just realized I wasn't getting the results and Tom's heart was breaking each time that I then had to change the way that I saw things. So this isn't a like, oh my God, I can't believe men are like this and women are like this. It's like, okay, let's just talk about the reality. Ask yourself if this is now serving you, and if it's not, how do you and your partner adjust and pivot so that it does serve both of you?
Yes, absolutely. And this is why I'm such a big advocate of accepting the differences between men and women. Because once we understand and accept it, we can create that harmony that you're talking about, and we can focus more on the results, as you mentioned. I think people sometimes get too caught up in certain processes and how it should go. No, all that matters is that we get to a point that we're both happy and pouring into each other, and we're good. And I think, again, we just have to improve how we express ourselves to each other and understand that how we receive it won't always be how we expect it to be. Because we're constantly, I feel like, projecting onto others. Like, another example I'll give you is I've been on some shows and I mentioned how I try to tell men, like, I've noticed where if a man's in a relationship and let's say they're walking down the street and the woman says, I don't feel safe here. And to the man, when he logically assesses the area, there's nothing wrong. So to him, he'll dismiss what she's saying because it doesn't logically line up with what's in his head. And I try to encourage men, no, you have to understand you need to meet her where she's at emotionally right now. Understand that she's feeling this way for a reason. And, some people would argue, well, women can take advantage and manipulate you. All right, but if you know you're with a good woman, why assume the negative? You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with women being more honest and forthcoming with men. It's like, if you're worried that he's gonna use it against you, if he's been good to you otherwise, why assume that? Give him some benefit of the doubt. We're so quick to think someone's gonna hurt us. And the reality is that in life, hurt is inevitable. People are human. We're gonna all make mistakes sometimes and fall short. The key is, what's the intent behind it? Is there a willingness to learn and grow from it? Are we going to acknowledge our mistakes so that now we can correct it and not have to have this continuously happen in the relationship? But going back to that example of the getting in tune with her emotionally, again, because now once he dismisses her, she feels devalued and dismissed in that moment.
Especially when it comes to safety.
Exactly. And it could be in any kind of, different, I have a few popping in my head, but, and that's where I think, again, if a man would just start to understand she's not wired like you. You have to respect her wiring. You have to expect the way that she's built. And once you do, and once you learn how to at least acknowledge, because a lot of times it's not even that you have to do what she said in that moment. You know, it's not that, oh, well, she doesn't feel safe, that means automatically let's just leave. It means acknowledge that feeling and say, okay, is there anything like I can do right now to kind of help? What do you need? Or even reassuring her, don't worry, baby, I got you. If anything happens, I'm protecting you. That makes her feel more comfortable, and it doesn't make her feel dismissed in the moment. And now you guys find yourselves in more harmony. And now what also happens is the next time she feels some kind of way, she can be open about it because she knows you don't dismiss and devalue her in those moments. But if you shut her down, well, now next time she doesn't say anything. And now we're back to that towel example where it just keeps happening and happening. You keep saying, okay, well, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe it's okay. But you just feeling some kind of way because he keeps dismissing you. And then one day outbursts, and now we have a huge mess on our hands.
Like being heard, I think, is one of the top things in a relationship, right? That if you don't have, it's like the sign of that your relationship is doomed.
Absolutely. I absolutely believe that. Because again, we all want to feel valued and respected by our partners. We want to feel like our feelings matter to our partners. And I do think that when someone loves you, your feelings do matter. And so I'm a firm believer if they're dismissing you constantly, that's a problem. And I think that's a sign of that either they are the wrong person or they are not emotionally healthy enough to be in a relationship with you right now. And you know what? I feel the need to mention that right now. When we talk about walking away and ending some of these relationships, I want people to understand that sometimes it doesn't mean this can't work out later. It just means it cannot work out under these circumstances. And sometimes people have to fall apart before they can come back together. So I think sometimes people are afraid because they think this is the ultimate end. If this is a person that you have a connection with, for example, or that you feel very deeply for, but right now, let's say there's a conflict because time, and that time is causing fights and arguments because you feel like you're not getting the quality time you need from them and you feel neglected. All right, it doesn't automatically mean this can't work with them. It just means right now it can't because they can't maybe get off of work the way they need to. Maybe you have too many obligations right now. Maybe it's breaking apart, getting your situations in order, and then coming back together to make it happen.
So where's the fine line then between that versus the couples, which this was my ex-boyfriend, we broke up like 30 times. It was like, turbulent argument, we're done. And, then you go apart or you end up having this friction. Now I was much younger, so the communication piece, everything we're talking about, I wasn't equipped for any of this. But it definitely was, this isn't gonna work, let's break up. And then it's the missing part, right? You miss them or you miss a feeling that you have. And then you either convince yourself, which I did, I convinced myself that, maybe we can make it work. Now that I've had distance, I actually realize this is the one for me. And then you keep getting back with them because either you've convinced yourself or they've convinced you.
Okay, so let's use the not having enough time for each other example. You break up because you guys are always fighting about not having enough time for each other. During that breakup, you feel like you took time off. You feel like you're in a better place. You love this person. You want to get back with them. You miss them. You get back together. You're going to break up again. You know why?
Why?
You never addressed the issue of the time. That's it. At the end of the day, there are some people who just believe you should never get back with an ex. I think that's nonsense. I think that you have to evaluate it on an individual basis. Different circumstances call for different measures. If the issue that led to the breakup has been addressed and corrected, okay, you can give it another chance. If not, then it's pointless to try it again. And that's what most people do. Most people get back together without properly addressing and resolving what led to the breakup. So you're gonna constantly be in the same pattern over and over again. And not only is it addressing it and correcting it, it's understanding it. Meaning, if this man did something to hurt you and now he wants you back, he should be able to explain to you why that action was a problem.
Oh.
See, because if I can easily say, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, it won't happen. Okay, why shouldn't you do it again?
What if he says, because I hurt you?
Okay, why do you think it hurt me? It's like that earlier thing where we kept going with the why. You gotta keep going. Show me that you understand what the root issue is. So let's say he flirted with a woman. Well, I understand that flirting with women is inappropriate and we shouldn't be doing our relationship. I need to respect, what we have here. Okay, good.
Right.
But just saying, oh, I'm sorry, why? Because it was wrong and you didn't like it. Okay, why? Why didn't I like it? Why do you think it was a problem? You know what I'm saying? Show me that you get it. Now when I see that you get it and you've corrected it, all right, we can give this another try.
Yeah, I believe you have the 3 things of basically you should keep trying if he acknowledges it, he understands and accepts it, and then number 3, he's consistent in the effort to try and fix it.
Yes, absolutely.
Talk to me about that last one. What up, homie? I got something free and new to share with you right now. How often are you visited by that negative voice in your head telling you that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, experienced enough, not fill in the blank? One of the most powerful things you can learn to do in life is to turn that negative voice into your bestie. And I want to teach you how to do that and so much more in my 4 steps to becoming confident workshop. And guys, the most amazing thing is you can actually register for completely free for this workshop. So click the link on your screen and I'll see you on the inside.
So here's what I feel the need to mention first. I think it's very important, especially when it comes to marriages and long-term relationships. So what I have found is, let's say the couple is a married couple, they've been fighting. Let's say he hasn't been helping with the kids and he's been kind of emotionally neglecting them, right? So she's at her wit's end and she feels like, you know what? He needs to show me that he's serious about fixing these things before I fully give myself to him. So now he's trying. And for the next 2 weeks, he's watching the kids, he's sitting down, talking, he's doing all these things. But because she has it in her head that I'm not ready to give myself because I don't trust your progress, she keeps holding back. He starts to feel like this ain't working. What's the point? And after 2 weeks, he reverts back to the same nonsense. Now, some people can make the argument, well, if he really changed, he wouldn't revert back to the same nonsense. That's a fair argument. However, if he's trying to put forth an effort in things that maybe weren't second nature to him, maybe he wasn't accustomed to doing, but he's trying to get into that mode, and he's not seeing anything that shows him this is actually working, he will stop. That's how men are wired. So when we talk about a man consistently putting forth the effort to correct, we have to understand there needs to be, I hate to say it like this, but kind of a reward system, all right? It's like, I hate to say it like this too, it's like training a dog.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that.
You got little Scooby snacks here and there. You gotta do something, all right? So, and I'm not even saying, like, it's just about showing appreciation. It's about acknowledging the effort. I see you've been trying, thank you, I appreciate that. That makes him feel like, okay, I'm being seen. This is working. I can keep doing this, all right? But if you just hold back on him, he's gonna stop.
I love this so much. And the reason why I love it, and I knew you were going to say train a dog, is me and Tom literally say this to each other. Because we're so open, we have this communication, we literally say, I need your encouragement. Right now, you've asked me to do something which I'm really keen to show up for you, to show you that I'm committed to this relationship. But I'm a human. And as humans, we need encouragement. And so it may take me 3 months to get there. But what I need from you is I need your encouragement that as I start to try, that I'm going to mess up, I'm going to fall, I'm going to forget. But if you can keep encouraging me, like I almost tell him that, like, you know, give me that encouragement because that will help me get to where I need to go, and vice versa. The same thing, I'll be like, babe, thank you so much for trying. You're not there yet, and what I would love differently is X, Y, and Z, but thank you so much for trying. And it's really just the trying part that goes, oh, cool, it's appreciated. Yes. And so even though it's like the joke of the training the dog, it's actually real. And so we just go to what serves you and your relationship. And because we both realize we both want this encouragement, that when we're trying to change our behavior, you need that to get to where you need to go. It's going to take time and consistency. And let's face it, it takes at least 30 days to create a new habit.
And I'm so, like, I literally was going to say, what I've suggested to couples is have a 30-day trial period. And in that 30 days, though, the key is both sides have to show up 100%. Yes. It cannot be one person gets to sit back to see what the other person makes corrections. Even if it was the other person who violated or did whatever wrong, you have to both be at this together to really see if it'll work. Because now, if in 30 days, for example, that woman is doing her part and that man is trying, and in that time, he falls off again while she's still doing her part, this is the evidence that this isn't it. It's not gonna work. He needs to go. Because he can't even keep it up when you're doing what you're supposed to do and he's already been instructed, he's been given the guidance, there's no excuse for him. But if you hold back, he can't keep it up forever like that. So I need 30 days, both of you being the best that you can be. Let's see what happens. And after that, we'll see if this can work or not. I've had some couples, it reignited their relationship, everything worked. I've had other couples realize this isn't gonna work, and we fall apart. But it gave them the clarity that they needed.
That's what I was gonna say. That's really the key, right? Is to be able to go, oh, this relationship is definitely worth the work. And look what happens when we both put time and energy into it. Or like, oh my God, we've both tried and thank God we now realize this isn't gonna work.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we would have just spent the last 5-10 years going down the wrong path. And I think that that's so much about what I've heard from people with COVID, where many relationships either realize, oh God, we basically were ignoring that this relationship was broken and we should have left years ago. Or people were like, I needed this to reconnect with my partner.
Yes, and that goes back to the example of how people are just using distractions and buffers in their life to tolerate their relationship. COVID had removed a lot of those buffers and distractions. So it exposed a lot of things for a lot of people. Now, some people were still able to distract themselves. So I don't want everyone to think just because you made it through COVID, that means you're with the right person.
Oh God, that's true. I never thought about that knock on. Yeah.
Some of you still need to walk away, but that's a whole other discussion. But it definitely exposed a lot of things. And I think that's what we need to do, is we need to have moments where we remove the distractions and really see what do we have here. Like one tactic, I guess you'll call it, that I've used or instructed people to do to kind of see if there's a real connection is go on a road trip for at least like 6 hours. No phones allowed though. Like no talking on the phone and being distracted by the phone. Just sit there and see if you guys can talk to each other and enjoy each other. If we're starting off new or fresh early in the relationship and we can't have this moment, that's a problem. That's a real problem. Because you cannot find no relationship where two people say they have a connection that's been together for years and they don't have stories of once upon a time talking for hours and hours on end, all right? They all have that story. So it's like a huge factor or a huge key to, if you can't achieve that, we have a problem here.
It's so interesting because that is definitely one of those barometers. Like Tom and I are always making sure, are we connected? Because relationships are hard work, and so we're very aware of that. We're always trying to check in with each other. And what are your barometers to be able to judge if it's a good relationship or not? And one of the things is, do we laugh together? That's like one of the things. If we're not laughing together, something's wrong. Either one of us is stressed, but to be able to come together, like that is very important to us. So we need to address if one of us isn't laughing when we're with each other. And do we just conversate? So Tom and I, we go on vacation, we literally can sit there for 9 hours and just talk. And people are like, what do you do? And we're like, we just talk. And they're like, about what? And you're like, to be honest, it's anything and everything.
Yeah,
like you don't even think about it. It's almost like, I can't even believe how much we just talk, right? Me and you, we've got this like chemistry where we're able to just really have this beautiful conversation. And I think that becomes a natural thing. And if you don't have it with your partner, especially, right? You should have it with friends and family, but if you don't have it with your partner, that really is a sign. And with Tom and I, because we're business partners as well, I'm very conscious of, have we just been speaking about business for the last 2 hours? Because that's also the difference. Is I don't want my relationship just to be about business. So it's not even just assessing the time, but it's assessing the quality of conversation as well.
Absolutely. And I think, again, a lot of people overlook that and overlook the need for it. But it definitely is a great indicator that you have something real here. And I would argue that I believe that when it comes to romantic relationships, when two people are able to talk like that, it's because there's this underlying desire to want to talk to each other. So it's almost like we want to find something to talk about because we just like talking to each other. So we might be repeating the same stories over and over again, and we already had this discussion how many times? We don't care. We're still enjoying it every single time because we have that draw to each other. Whereas you have other individuals, it feels like they're forcing it. and they can't keep it going for too long. And again, they immediately need a distraction. Well, let me jump on my phone. Let me go watch the kids. Let me go do this. Let me go do that. Because they don't enjoy each other's presence.
Okay, with everything we're talking about, the thing that I really want to make sure we touch on is as we're starting to assess, can this relationship work? Is it worth the effort? Do I need to leave? Like, is this becoming toxic? All these different discussions. There's one thing is we have been told, or a lot of people believe, that there's only the one that's out there for you. Now, I think that could be a reason why some people hold on to relationships maybe longer than they should, because they believe, but this is the one. And so if I can overcome X, Y, and Z, then it's going to work because they're the one. So A, what do you think about the one? Do you think there is? And then do you agree with me on the fact that it could be somewhat toxic to people? And when I say toxic, a reason why people stay longer than they should.
Okay, so one, I want to say yes, as far as it can be a very toxic mindset. It has caused a lot of problems. With that said, I actually still technically believe in it.
You believe in the one?
So let me break it down like this. Again, I'm a big believer in connection. And connection is not something that you experience with everybody. You can experience chemistry with tons of people. You can be technically compatible with a lot of people, but you don't have a connection with everybody. When you survey people and you ask them, how many times have you experienced that connection in your life? The average person is gonna say one time. If lucky, maybe twice. All right, and hopefully it only had to be one, because hopefully they got with the one and that was it. So I believe in that one person in that sense, and I'll use the word your best fit. I believe there's someone who is your best fit.
Literally just one person.
I know it's hard to say that just one person. I'm not gonna say that it cannot be more than one person, but I think that in the course of your life and the way that things play out, you're not gonna meet that best fit a bunch of different times, all right? For various reasons. For one, you can look at it simply as if you are in one relationship, right? And let's say you get with your best fit and it doesn't work out for some reason, because that's a whole nother story I'm gonna get into in a second. Well, now it becomes so much harder to even embrace anyone else. The bar has been set higher. Your willingness to be patient through certain situations might be completely hindered now, because it's like you had steak, you don't want to go back to low-grade meat, whatever you want to call it, right? So that can create a struggle for a lot of individuals. Also, again, I just think in the course of our lives, no matter how many millions or billions of people there are in this world, we're not crossing paths with all of them, all right? And I do think that there's many people you can have a relationship with. There's many people that you can have a level of success with, but I just don't think all those people fit like that best fit does. Now, the reason why I am a little hesitant when we use words like the one is simply because, like even using soulmate, they can be that quote unquote best fit. That doesn't guarantee you're gonna be with them. The unfortunate reality is that human nature, we have free will. So even though, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, even if our spirits truly are aligned with each other, right? There's even this I don't know if it's a story or Proverbs called the red string, where it's like basically there's a red string tied from our heart to someone else's heart. No matter where they are in the world, that string is always there, and eventually you come across and you see that the red string is right there connecting you two. And you never lose the red string, right? And I'm a believer that you don't destroy or create connection. It's either there or it's not. But the unfortunate reality is that people still have free will. And for various reasons, people choose to go in different directions. That's why I don't like even saying if it's meant to be, because to me, saying that has a mindset of, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm gonna receive this. I don't believe that. You have choices to make. You have to be wise with your choices. If not, you're gonna derail where your life could have gone, all right? If I deviated from a one, I still wouldn't say more than two. Like, I just don't think it's this whole huge pool of people that you can really, really succeed with and really live out your true purpose. And that's another big key of it. If you don't know yourself, then there's multiple people you can be with. All right? Because you're gonna be busy trying to fit into different people's boxes. Once you know and identify yourself and stand strong and confidently in it, you start to realize that pool shrinks a lot more. it's hard for me to say that it really goes past the one. But again, I'll give it 2.
But the reason why I love this discussion is I really do get torn because I've been, obviously, like I said many times, been with my husband for a long time now, and I think to myself, what if I didn't come to America? Because I met him.
How do I keep my skin looking this youthful at age 47 without getting fillers or Botox? I've been a master esthetician for 26 years, and my secret is using tretinoin from Agency. Tretinoin is the gold standard for anti-aging because it improves wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, unclogs pores, and smooths out texture. Tretinoin is a vitamin A derivative that stimulates collagen production to help firm the skin, and it's been my secret anti-aging treatment since my early 20s. So what are you waiting for? Try Agency today.
I came over here to study for 2 months, and he was at my school, my film school. What if I didn't come to the film school? Does that mean that I will never find the one for me? And I really have a hard time with knowing, like, oh my God, this one decision will echo the rest of my life to either find somebody perfect for me or not find anyone perfect for me.
So I think that's looking back in hindsight. It's easy to kind of break it down and dissect it. Yes, we can say, well, what if you never came to America? But we could argue, maybe you were always meant to come to America. Maybe there was something in you pushing you in that direction that you're not fully aware of. That's why when I look at it from a spiritual perspective, I view it as, okay, God may not make us do things because he gives us free will, but he knows what we will do. So if he already knows the map of our life, he's already evaluated, let's just say, every person you're gonna come across. So he knows which one is the best one. He knows which one fits. He knows which one that when you're aligned with will reach new heights and accomplish the purpose set on your life. The rest of them, yes, because there's free will, he will allow you to choose what you want to choose. But it's almost like a father. You came to your father and you had 10 guys and you said, which one should I marry? And your father might say, well, listen, they're all great guys. And I love you, so whichever one you truly want, I think I'm gonna honor you. But this is the guy I like. It's not gonna be, I like this one and this one, so just choose one of these 2. Right? And if you're God, I don't need multiple options to give you. I'm God. Like, I know which one is the right one. So to me,